Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix, and we are back for another edition of Sunday Night Astro Live, which we do here every Sunday night from roughly 8 o'clock, although tonight's a little bit later than 8, till right around 10:40, 10:45, sometimes 11, depends on how I'm feeling. Now you're feeling, because this is kind of a two-way thing. You know, it's not just me talking into this mic and this camera, but it's also you and who you are and your space and your vibrations as we are connected in the symbiotic relationship where, believe it or not, our electromagnetic energies, just like the aurora borealis, are in contact with one another. This is true, subtle as they may be. So in as much as this is my show, it is also your show. It is our show. And every time we do it, it's a little bit different, at least in terms of the energy and the vibe, but it's always a pleasure to be here. And I hope I can, at the very least, get into some astrology tonight, help you understand a few things, maybe have a few laughs along the way. Maybe we can crack open some possibility while we're moving through this very unusual realm and time. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. I hope you come back again. And for those of you who are back again, I'm glad you're here. So yeah, a lot is going on. We hit the eclipse yesterday. We've been in the eclipse mode for the last few days. Actually, I mean, really depends on who you talk to. But for some people, it's a week and a half. You start to feel the eclipse energies. Other people, it's 3 weeks out. I'm somewhere in between. Let's go a week and a half to 2. I like the week and a half. So we're talking 10 days. So we have 10 days. And then today is the first. The next eclipse is on the 15th. So that's not only on the back end of the eclipse window, which, and usually we'll see this, right? We'll see the two eclipses, take place within 2 weeks of each other, because that's how it works, right? We go from the new moon to the full moon, and that's roughly a rough 2-week cycle, right? So not as soon as we're finished with this one, which we're still working through, we're headed towards the next one, and there's a symbiosis between the two, and we're going to try to flesh some of that out tonight on tonight's show, what that symbiosis is. We're going to look specifically at one area of the globe, which is really where the eclipse was emanating from, and that's down by Antarctica and Argentina and part of Chile. And checking in on, I've really been watching Argentina for the last few days, just in terms of news coming out of Argentina. And some of it is right along the eclipse lines and the eclipse zone, dealing with the nodal axis, especially as it relates to things like cryptocurrency and money. We'll get into that because Argentina has had a long history of having to deal with debt and inflation. And this is probably one of the worst times in the history of Argentina. And it's really kind of a mind-blowing concept, because when you look at Argentina, it has a ton of natural resources. I mean, they've done a huge amount of deals over the last couple of weeks around oil. They're opening more oil leases. They're working with shale production, and that's just oil. They have a lot of beef in Australia, and of course they have that Pampas area, not quite deep into the southern part of Argentina, but not far from there, and it raises a ton of beef. Silver is another thing that Argentina has quite a bit of, right? That's what the name Argentine. Argent is silver, so it's the place of silver. And so we're going to look at some Argentina tonight and kind of poke around the Antarctic region. I didn't really look at Chile. I was really focusing on Argentina because it feels like that's where the eclipse. It's a very the eclipse path is quite strange. It's a very unusual eclipse. Now, the lunar eclipse, which is going to be on the what is it? The 15th, 22 Scorpio. That eclipse path is very different. It's almost like a bell curve, right? And we'll take a look at that because we haven't really looked at it. We talked about this eclipse for the past couple of weeks, and I went through a number of different. It was interesting. I was on Twitter yesterday, and I got on kind of a Twitter run with the eclipse. Somebody asked me about what the black moon is, because the black sun is, because this eclipse is very much. Most eclipses are related to the black sun because the sun goes black. That's what happens during an eclipse. So I talked a little bit about the black sun. And of course, the black sun has its mythological relationship with the Thule Society and the Vril Society, things like that, right? I mean, so we see the Azov command in Ukraine, and their symbol is the black sun. And the black sun is really it's Saturn. Saturn is the black sun, and at one point Saturn was the sun. This is theoretically what was happening here. Saturn was the sun in this solar system, and it emitted a different kind of light. It emitted a purple light, like kind of that ultraviolet purple light. And supposedly, as a result of it, life on Earth was very, very different. And there was higher amounts of oxygen. It was never quite dark, and it wasn't quite light. It was sort of very lush, almost Garden of Eden-like existence. And with the higher amounts of oxygen, there's probably a good chance that a lot of the life forms on the planet were actually larger as well, including humans. And then we get into the whole realm of the giants and all those things. Neil Adams, who was a comic book illustrator, had a really interesting theory about Earth. And he believes that Earth is an expanding, he just passed away. He believed that Earth could expand and contract. This has nothing to do with globe Earth or flat Earth, but it has to do with the mass, whatever the mass is. And he believed that, I'm getting some text here. Hold on a second. What do people text me during my show? Okay, there we go. All right. It's funny, some people, well, one person in particular texts me during my show. They know that this is my show, but I've told them I'm on my show right now. It's not the first time. Anyway. Yeah, so Neil Adams believed that the Earth could expand and contract based on whatever the needs of the population were at any given time. It's a really interesting theory. And why not? Why not? If this was the land of the giants, then it could have expanded to be the home, the habitat of the giants. Now it's being occupied apparently by the Lilliputians, and perhaps it's contracted because of that. And there could even be a relationship with things like population. And if the Earth itself is having more people on it, then perhaps it will expand and there's more landmass, or perhaps there's more landmass than we can wrap our heads around. That's possible too. Elon Musk, who we'll talk about tonight, believes that the total number of people on the planet is wrong, and that he doesn't believe that the Earth is overpopulated. We'll get into some Elon Musk tonight. And Jasper, the astrological cat, is here, bringing his wisdom to Sunday night show. We always look forward to his telepathic input. Isn't that right, Jasper? I couldn't do it without you. Nope. He looks like Brack. Does he look like Brack from, at times? He looks like Brack from Space Ghost. You look like Brack. Yes, you do. So we're going to get into the eclipse. We're going to look at what's been happening. Very interesting things happening in Argentina, particularly with cryptocurrency. And we are in the cryptocurrency axis with the South Node in Scorpio and the True Node in Taurus. It's the battle between hard assets and soft assets, privacy versus transparency. Just over the weekend, I believe it was on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. See, this is the weird thing about cryptocurrency. Like, your wallet is kind of an open book. This whole thing that your wallet's on the blockchain. It is. Your wallet's on the blockchain. Now, how and who you transact with, that is more private or anonymous. But apparently somebody sent Alex Jones $1 million in Bitcoin over, was it Friday or Saturday? It became a big story on the internet because the so-called left is out and gunning for bear with the so-called right. And Alex Jones is in pretty deep financial straits as it relates to, I think he's probably got more money. I mean, it's not, he always cries poor, but I think he's doing pretty well. The challenge for him is the Sandy Hook trial and the amount of money that potentially he might have to pay out to the parents of Sandy Hook because of the judgment. And I have my thoughts about the trial. I have my thoughts about Alex Jones. I have my thoughts about Sandy Hook. And you won't hear them here tonight. But if you listen to 15 Minutes of Flame, that's 15 minutes of OV Flame, there's a good chance you will hear my true thoughts about the subject matter, because this medium, this platform, has ears. It has ears. It has very, very sensitive ears. So tune in this week. Maybe I'll talk about it. But Alex Jones, again, we're talking cryptocurrency and we're talking Bitcoin. He is an Aquarian. I do believe he's a Taurus rising. That's my, people don't know his exact birth time. Well, some people do. I don't. I think he's a Taurus rising. He just feels like a Taurus rising to me. And that would put, let's see, Scorpio on his 7th house cusp. And it would be, let's see, Sagittarius 8th, Capricorn 9th, and Aquarius 10th. And he's an Aquarian. So that makes sense that he would be out in the world with his Aquarian. He feels like a Taurus rising. So getting some Bitcoin, $1 million worth of Bitcoin during an eclipsed sun with Uranus conjuncting the sun, which is Aquarian, would make sense for somebody like Alex Jones. But Argentina having its own relationship with cryptocurrency, and we'll talk about that tonight. So we're going to look at the eclipse. This one, we're going to look at the next eclipse, which takes place on May 15th. And we'll have the full moon, and we're going to look at it. I'm going to try to put some of these pieces together like I did on Facebook. So the purple sun went dark. It became the black sun. And out of remembrance and reverie and the what's what I'm looking for, memorialization of Saturn, which was because when you're in that purple light, right, that's like, it's almost like this pre-Edenic state. It was a different kind of light than our current sun, which is really light. It's light, right? It differentiates. It has a different shape and shadow and form. It's Apollonian. And one could make a case that previously, again, for going into, the first sun of the solar system, Saturn, that the purple light is different. It doesn't have the same kind of shadow differentiation, giving shape to form, things like that. It's more liminal, and probably in a lot of ways maybe more magical. But then something happens, and Saturn loses its purple luminescence, and it becomes the black sun. And it also is connected to the black cube, the hypercube, which is also a symbol of Saturn. So this is, like Saturn worship. And the black sun is taken. There was an American poet named Harry Crosby who was obsessed with the black sun. He was an expat. He lived in Paris. He didn't live very long. I think he was in and around Paris at the time of like Hemingway and Pound and Joyce, the whole kind of Paris Review period. I think he was around during that time. And he was very into this whole idea of the black sun as being this alchemical image that allowed people, more latitude, less differentiation, less Apollonian. Anyway, we're going to look at the eclipse and a bunch of other stuff. We got Johnny Depp. I finally took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. I've actually been talking about Johnny Depp on my other show most of this week, and trying to get into the what I would call the supernatural component around Johnny Depp's relationship with Hunter S. Thompson, and just in general, and the state of Johnny Depp's soul. So I talked about that on at least two or three of my shows this last week. But I didn't look at and I knew the astrology. I knew kind of what was going on, but I didn't talk. I was saving it for you guys. I did have a little bit of a taste on Friday, or it's Thursday, when I was on with the Sane Asylum crew, which is Giuseppe and Dave Scorpio. Talked a little bit. They're cool guys. I'm not sure their audience is like totally wired for astrology, so I didn't talk a lot more about astrology. So I decided to save a lot of it. So we're going to get into Johnny Depp tonight, and we're going to look at his chart, and particularly his chart and his relationship with Hunter S. Thompson. I think it's fascinating. And it's more than just two people who have an more than two people that have like a synastry connection. I think there's something else going on there, and something. I don't want to use the word deep, but it's deeper than the interpretation of the chart. Let's say let's. When I think of deep, I think of somebody who brings a lot of information that just kind of blows me out of the water. I'm like, man, that's fucking deep. This is deep in a different kind of. This is murky swamp deep. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's chart. Very interesting chart. Super, super interesting. And we're going to look, of course, at the third part there with Elon Musk, Johnny Depp, and Amber Heard. So it's a very bizarre love triangle. Wasn't that a song, Bizarre Love Triangle? Was that New Order? Yeah, New Order wrote that song for Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, and Elon Musk. So we're going to get into that tonight. So we have the eclipse, this one, the upcoming eclipse, the lunar eclipse, which happens on the 15th, and these personalities. And it's very interesting that Johnny Depp and Elon Musk are in the news simultaneously for different reasons. Now the rumor and the word on the street is that Elon Musk wants to buy Disney. Well, who was one of Disney's biggest stars in the 2010s? It was Johnny Depp for the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. So now we have Elon Musk going in and, threatening, rattling his saber to buy the company that create. And you could make a case those three Pirates of the Caribbean movies, that those were some of the most successful movies in Disney history. I don't have the box office receipts in front of me, but I'm sure they were very, very high. And they didn't, and I know that they bought the Star Wars franchise from George Lucas so they could make their movies, right? That's an investment. Like, they paid for those movies. They paid for those rights. So when they made those movies, the shitty ones that they made, that they did that in order to recoup the money that they kicked out to Lucas, right? So you have to factor that in. Those Star Wars movies may have been, I don't know what the box office receipts were, but they may have been incredibly successful. But you also have to factor in how much you paid George Lucas, right? With the Pirates of the Caribbean, that is a property they own. They came up with the ride at Disneyland. So they didn't have to pay George Lucas, right, for the rights to do those movies, those shitty movies. But they could, that's just all profit on top, right? They own the ride, they own the idea, they own the concept, they own the story. So I don't have the figures in front of me, but even if their new Star Wars movies outgrossed the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, Pirates of the Caribbean movies netted more because the original investment in purchasing the Star Wars brand from George Lucas, which was a lot of money. So now Elon Musk threatened to buy Disney, and one of the biggest stars in Disney during the 2010s, Johnny Depp. And it goes on and on and on. We're also going to, depending on how much time we have, tonight's personality night. We're looking at last week we were looking at weather cycles and time, the ill winds of Saturn in Aquarius. We looked at the potato famine, we looked at the Dust Bowl, and we looked at what's going on currently with conditions around the world in terms of weather, food production, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was a big conceptual week last week, or maybe a medium conceptual. This week, it's all personality driven. This is the Sunday night clickbait show. But I'm doing it because it's interesting, not to get clicks. I'm just playing around. The other person that we're going to look at, and I'm going to make sure that we have time to look at this person, is Alexander Dugan. And Alexander Dugan has been labeled Vladimir Putin's Rasputin. And Dugan's a very interesting character. He has something called the fourth political theory. And I'm not going to try to get too heavy into his political theory and ideology, but Alexander Dugan's written close to 30 books. He is an absolute freak on Western culture. He's done everything in his power to learn as much about the West as possible. He's read the poets of the West. He understands the ideological and the economic leanings of the West. So he's made the West a very intense focus of his study in order to create what he calls fourth political theory. So he's been catching a lot of heat from the Western press, and people are comparing him to like Aleister Crowley, and he's a Thelemite, he's an occultist. And that might be true. There's a possibility of that. There is definitely a possibility of that. But let me adjust my mic here. With the mic like this, wasn't it Ian Anderson? Didn't Ian Anderson have that kind of like David Copperfield, that kind of mic, right? It was sort of almost like a wand or something. I could do that. All I'd have to do is just stand up. Anyway, we're going to look at Alexander Dugan. Very interesting chart. Super interesting. And I was on Clyde Lewis this last week, and Clyde was looking for a guest to talk about, what we would call the supernatural or the metaphysical power behind government. Like, what is the guiding hand of governments? Do we believe that it's just bean counters, or is there a supernatural, esoteric, and occult back end to government? And I would say unequivocally, yes, there is. And if so, what is it and who is it? And does it change from rulership to rulership and epoch to era? Does it change? Possibly. Does it change with the times? Possibly. Is Dugan the modern equivalent of John Dee, and John Dee being the great mage for Queen Elizabeth I and the court astrologer? And astrology has played a big role clearly in Western government. Astrology's played a very significant role. Gene Dixon, so Dixon rhymes with Nixon, and Richard Nixon's wife, Pat, used to read Gene Dixon's horoscopes in the newspaper. Gene Dixon used to write those horoscopes. Gene Dixon, Sidney Omar, those were your horoscope writers. And Gene Dixon was kind of interesting. Yeah, what was interesting about Gene Dixon is that she predicted the election of Kennedy, and then she predicted the death of Kennedy. This is before Kennedy was even, I don't want to get this high. This is before Kennedy was even elected, right? So she predicted, but then she changed her mind. Now, this is what I think is interesting. Then she said that Nixon would win. Now, there are some people who do believe that Nixon won that election. Okay. So maybe she was right about that. Maybe Nixon did win. People like to point out, well, Nixon did win, and, Gene Dixon was wrong. Maybe he did win because old man Kennedy did a deal with the Jewish mob and the Italian mob to help get his son elected. This is true. Absolutely. Bugsy Siegel, Meyer Lansky, Sam Giancana, right? And the deal was that JFK Jr., JFK would essentially leave Israel alone. That was the deal. We're gonna help you. We're gonna help your son get elected. You just got to lay off Israel. And both those mobs were connected. And really, in a lot of ways, the Italian mob played a tertiary role to the Jewish mob. And this is true because the Italian mob did not know how to run Las Vegas. And it was Bugsy Siegel that set Las Vegas. There was a third Jewish mobster. I forget who he was. Now, in Godfather Part 2, Francis Coppola brings that story into the Corleone family, and that's with the addition and emergence of Hyman Roth, who is in many ways kind of a cipher of those Jewish mobsters, and a very interesting character who gets shot almost Kennedy-like at the end of the movie, not in a car, but I believe it was I think it's at an airport, if I'm not mistaken. He's being interviewed. Anyway, it was almost Jack Ruby-like in some ways. So yeah, we're going to get into it tonight, and we're going to get into Dugan, and we're going to get into this whole idea of the spiritual or esoteric hand behind, to some degree. It will really come through Dugan when we talk about Dugan, and specifically his Mars. And you'll see that when we get there. If I have time, I will talk about Carla Faye Tucker, who was the last woman to be executed in this country, if I'm not mistaken. There might have been one other person after that. But Carla Faye Tucker, like a bizarre story here in Texas. And the reason I want to talk about her is her chart it's pretty interesting. And especially when it gets into things like Sagittarius, hardcore Sagittarius aspects, and Scorpio. So if we have time, we'll take a look into the dark mirror of Carla Faye Tucker. So it's kind of celebrity night tonight, although it's not completely superficial. We'll skim around the superficial a little bit and always try to connect with something slightly deeper here if we can. All right. Speaking of deep, let's go deep into the best chat group on the freaking internet, whether it's here or on the weekday show. We've got the lovely and talented Joan S. right at the top. Garrett Brooks is here. Hi, Garrett. Thomas Jordan. Hello, Tom. We got a couple of wrenches back to back. Hey, Ryan. Good to see you. I hope you're well. I've been thinking about you this weekend, and I hope you guys are moving through your time remembering your good friend Squeaky. Carrie Rose is here. What's going on? Hey, there's my man Benito. What's going on, brother B? JJ Rain the Blanc. Bring the white rain. The white rain. It's like a white wedding. I bet you JJ can do like a really good wedding ring. She's a very talented jeweler, by the way. Cheryl Lociavo checking in from the Stone Crab State, Maryland. Wise Rivers here. Good evening to you. Double B, Beth Berry. Hi, Mark S. Arlene Vega in the house. Greetings right back at you. There's Ree. Hey, hey. Hi, Ree. Provocateur, astrologer. Hello from Portsmouth, the home of communists, not the patriots anymore. Oh, man, I'm so sorry. I used to go to Portsmouth about once a year when I was married. And I've said this before, the Portsmouth Brewery has the best clam chowder I've ever had in my life. I used to love walking around Portsmouth in the wintertime. Snowy. You got that bridge. I think the bridge goes over to Maine. It's such a cool place. I love Portsmouth. Let's see. Who else do we have here? PB, what's going on? PB GSS 1123. Sending good vibes. Well, good vibes are welcome here and right back at you. Misbehaving too. Russell Gill, what's going on, Russell? And there's Lewis Walden, who is really Southwest Florida real estate. There is no other realtor in Southwest Florida. It is Lewis Walden. If you have any real estate needs and you're in Southwest Florida, go check him out. Great energies this weekend. Looking forward to the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. Maybe you can hang out with Donald Trump. He's got a box there, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. What do you know about the Kentucky Derby? Have you ever even met a horse? I don't think so. Hey, there's Renstar. What's going on, Renstar? The eclipse, my 8th house of death, and I just got a phone call that one of my friends died. Yeah, man, that's some real eclipse energy right there. Isn't that eclipse energy? You're a Taurus. How did it affect you? You got out today. I had some company over today, and the door was open slightly, and I look outside, and there's Jasper. He's just lounging outside on the front porch. You were lounging. You were kicking it. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry to hear that, PA. But man, that's it's almost like a cliche, right? You have this eclipse in your 8th house and your friend dies. Okay. Well, condolences, definitely. Yeah, and our friend here, Ryan, lost a good friend of his family last week. So, this eclipse energy is definitely in the air. It is definitely in the air. Yeah, you're in the air too. You're definitely in the air. Flat Earth Hippie, what's going on? FEH. Marianne Smith. Speaking of Taurus, in the house. Let's see. Who else? Denise Walker. Hey, Denise. Good to see you. Lots of energy. Man, I had a freaking head rush today. The energy. Don't cry for me, Argentina. That's pretty funny. Mary Mansfield. Hi, Mary. Lapicius. What's going on, Lapicius? Marissa. Hey, Marissa. Nice to see you. Raven Rain checking in from the Northwest. Marissa checking in from the big North. The boys from Brazil were in Argentina. That's funny, Russell. Cribbies are here. Celebrating some Beltane with us. Check out the show on Friday. Steve and Chris brought their A game on Friday. Awesome show. S.C. Carlson, the Pope is from Argentina. That's right. He is from Argentina. He got that Argentina hookup. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Michael, what's going on, brother? DJMC, checking in. There's Jan. Hi, Jan. Yes, Jasper is a cutie pie. Now we're the home of the mentally ill. What does that mean? I think it's going to get worse. Susie Gemini. Hi, Susie. Good to see you. Let's see who else we have. WC Ray. Hey, Robin. How you doing? Been wondering about you. I haven't seen you in a while. Or maybe I have, but I just haven't acknowledged you. In which case, I'm acknowledging you. Good to see you. Let's see. Census takers are the most overzealous entities. I know, right? One of my favorite census taker stories. I didn't know this guy was a census taker, and I was living in town in Fredericksburg about whenever I just moved there. I was there a couple months, so I think that was at the beginning of 2020, right? It was 2020. Anyway, so I'm there, and my office faced the street. So I'm looking out my window, and I see this guy parked across the street. And then he gets out of his car, and he walks up to my door. I don't know who he is. So I went out the back door, and I went around to the gate, and I kind of snuck up on him. And he was sitting there with this little clipboard. I said, "Can I help you?" And I scared the shit out of him. And I feel kind of bad because he was an older dude. And he's, oh, sorry, man. I didn't mean to scare you. I didn't really mean to scare him, but I did mean to, sort of tweak him a little bit. And then he told me he was a census guy. I said, "Yeah, I can't help you right now. I have a client," which was probably not true. And maybe not in that moment, maybe a little bit later. And then he left, and he never came back. So I've managed to, how shall we say this, circumnavigate the census, the last two censi period. Let's see, who else do we have? Carol, what's going on, Carol? How are you? Buenos noches. We got a little south of the border thing. We got a little Buenos Aires, a little Buenos noches. D. Lehman. Hi, D. Lehman. How are you? Let's see. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. Yep, you can go over there and check us out 9/11 in the morning. Alex Jones is friends with Max Kaiser. That's probably where you got it. Maybe. I think Alex is friends with a lot of people. Joe Rogan has a shit ton of money. I could easily see Joe Rogan sending him $1 million in crypto. And it wouldn't, Joe Rogan wouldn't be that hard. Because Joe Rogan has made a shit ton off of crypto. We know he's got a bunch of money from the Spotify deal, but Joe Rogan, you just got to have a sense that Joe Rogan was in on Bitcoin early. That's what I think. Joe Rogan might be worth way more than any of us might realize, especially if he got in on Bitcoin early. Joe Rogan might be easily worth $500 million. So sending Alex Jones $1 million in Bitcoin, it's kind of like the tip I left last night at this very weird restaurant. This restaurant was so weird. So I live out here, and I'm like out here being the hill country. There's no good Asian food here. In fact, I may have a bit of a blasphemic moment, but the Asian food in Texas, not great. It's okay. Better in Austin, better in Houston. Houston's got the best Asian food I've had in Texas, but not close to California. So I had a hankering for some Asian food. And I know this place on William Cannon. And I ate there before, and it's the decor, it's okay. It's not like, oh God, don't you feel good here? Yeah, I feel good here. I feel really good here. Let's eat here. It's not that kind of place. It's not a dump. I've been in dumps. It's not a dump, but it's not like they should probably wash the windows in the front. Just saying. So we go in there last night. The food's pretty good. We go in there, and there's one waitress. That's it, just one. And she's moving at about half speed, and she can't multitask. And her her sequencing is just all kind of fucked up. You have to wonder, like, did she take something to fuck up her sequencing? I don't know. Or was she just born in there? Who knows? I don't know. So there was this one family, about 5 people, sitting down one of the center. You know how they have the center tables, right? They're usually in an aisle, and then they usually have a horseshoe around the outside with booths. So they had, I wanted to sit at a big booth because, you know, I'm like, I'm hungry. I want to order some food. Oh, I want to get into this Asian food. So we sat down at this small booth. I'm just thinking, you know, this booth is just too small. But I didn't want to sit by this. I don't know why. I was like, we'll just wait till those people leave, and then we'll occupy this other booth. So the waitress comes up to us and hands us the menus and says, "Would you like to order some appetizers?" And we haven't even fucking looked at the menu. It's like, okay, there's a sequence here. It's like you give us the menu, and then you ask us if we'd like something to drink, and then you go get it, and then you bring it back. Have you had a chance to look at the menus? Yes, we have. What would you like? That didn't happen. It's like, well, we need a little bit of time. We need a little bit of time. So then we decided they cleared out. So we decided we were going to go sit at the big booth. And this woman just could not multitask. It was one of the weirdest things. And she was really slow. And they had the food is not bad, I have to say. That's why I went there. And had an abundance of takeout food. But she was so self-conscious about the food and it coming out that there was this one table, these people sat down, and we didn't figure out what she said to them. And they got up and left. They just got up and left. I'm like, what the fuck did she say to them? And so then this other couple came in, and then they sat closer to us. And then we heard what she had said to the other couple, which was, "Oh, we're really behind tonight, and we have a bunch of takeout orders, and it's going to take longer than usual." I've never been in a restaurant where they've actually said that. You don't say that so you can chase your customers out. It was the most fucking bizarre thing. It was totally bizarre. I don't know. Was it a clip? It certainly felt like tourists moving through, I don't know, a bog of fertilized molasses. That's what it felt like. It was, and then it's like, oh yeah, I'll have this. And it's like, this sounds like a really good dish. And they had a little sticker on there right next to the dish that said new, meaning like, it's a new item. I'm like, oh wow. There were 2 of them. New. I said, I'll have this. Oh, well, we don't have that. Well, why not? Well, we're trying to, work some things out around. I was like, who the fuck knows? I don't know why they didn't have it. Of course, the Virgo in me kicks in and goes, well, why don't you just put a little piece of tape? Put a little piece of tape over it so we don't see this and you're advertising it as new. It was just weird. The takeout was robust. I mean, there were people that were taking big multiple bags, like hefty garbage bags of takeout out of that place. It's because the food is good. The ambiance, nothing to write home about. The service, not good. I'm going to chalk it up as eclipse energy. Okay. Who else do we have here? Let's see. Oswald Spengler, what's going on? There's, speaking of bulls, there's Charles Mazak. Let's see who else. Karen McCray. Hi, Karen. Purple is the color of royalty. Yes, it is. It definitely is. Lisa, hey, what's going on? Johnny Depp he's in the spotlight tonight. Let's see who else is Cece here. Yes, Cece Jones in the house. Steve Letro's here. I think I scrolled past him. Hi, Steve. Good to see you. Nix Monacaros. Good evening to you. Who else we have? Let's see. We got some old trees getting taken down. I had a meeting with the chicken whisperer today. It was very informative about chickens. Brianna Eves is here. Hi, Brianna. Sheila Sampson. Hi, Sheila. Good to see you. Let's see. Did we say hi to Sony? Hi, Sony. You guys are the best. Dugan is a scary guy. Glad to get into your. I'm scary. Maybe. Depends on your definition of scary. But we'll check it out. Let's see. The Discovery of Witches is an interesting series. I think I've seen that somewhere on cable. Gene Dixon. What do we say about Gene Dixon? We saw a Gene Dixon comment. Quality of service, man, it was so bad. It was so bad. Sam says the stock market's crashing. Well, we know that Netflix took a dump, and we know that that Google took a dump. Now, when Google takes a dump, that's something. And I think we're going to see a lot of these tech stocks, which are hyperinflated, getting a lot of government backing, particularly in the case of Netflix. Netflix is just overspeculated, and it's one of those companies that never turns a profit, but somehow the street always says, "Oh, don't worry, they'll turn a profit somewhere down the line." It's one of those businesses that just defies the gravity of economics. Facebook and Google, we know, are DARPA agencies, so they get some kickback money. Let's see. Who else do we have? Liz Atwell. What's going on, Liz? Checking in from the south of the equator. Let's see. Steve says, I suspect large Chinese restaurants are communist infiltration. However, what the hell is it anymore? So I guess we'll continue to enjoy Chinese food. It's interesting because I think that the cooks at this place were not Chinese. I think they were Mexican or Salvador. They looked south of the border. I don't think there was an Asian person in the place, but the food was like freaking legit, and the food is legit. Jordan Kraken in the overvalued stock market. Oh, T. Jordan Kraken. Yes, I would agree with that. Totally overvalued. Leon Vito Vincent Radwe. What's going on? LVVR. Lynette Jardine. Speaking of the Pacific Northwest, what's going on, Lynette? Good to see you in here. Susie, there's my man, Steve. Oh, we got a great group tonight. Jana Veal, Kelly B. Let's see, anybody else? 23 McGraw. Someone feels like Depp Tribal Smith is creating a new state. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great call, but there's something else going on with the Depp stuff. That's I'm going to try to put some of these things together. So let's just take a quick look at where we are astrologically. And once again, thank you for being here. I put got as many of you in as the welcome permits it. All right. Let's do the chart of the moment. Before I do that, let me make sure I have the right place. Always got to have the right place. What's the city? Yep, we're good. All right. So let's go back here. We'll go back home. Okay. The chat at the moment. You need more Mars. More Mars in your chart. You need to eat meat. It was told to me by Louis Trury. More Mars. All right. Oh, look at that. Venus right there at the edge. Right at the edge of Pisces. Get ready to kick into Aries. Venus starting to catch up. It was way behind the sun, right? We had the Venus retrograde, but way behind the sun. So this is probably the final day. Tomorrow will be the final day of the stellium, the big stellium in Mars, Neptune, Jupiter, and Venus. And, there's the potential for flow, right? The potential for flow or the potential for disruption and disruption under the influence of the black sun. So this week we'll see the emerge relationship wise, like we're going to see some fire come back into the zodiac when Venus enters Aries, because we just don't have any. We got Chiron, Chiron in Aries, which has been this bleeding constant with the fire trip. Not much fire, don't worry. You can count on the bleeding constant of Chiron in Aries, and it's been an interesting run so far. I wouldn't. We go back in time. You go back to 1968 when, at that time, Chiron had not even been discovered yet. Chiron doesn't get discovered really until 1977. That's when he gets discovered. But we could go back and track where Chiron was, and in 1968, and even towards the latter part of the 60s and early part of the 70s, we see the birth of second wave women's liberation. The second wave women's lib movement starts to come on during Chiron and Aries. So we see theoretically, women becoming more independent, and we see men at that time start to get more in touch theoretically with their feelings, right? That was the whole thing. You got to get in touch with your feelings. And I remember, I think I've told this story before. I used to work at this apartment complex. It was at the end of the 70s. I think I started working there in 1979, maybe 79, maybe 80 at the most. I think it might have been 80. It was a weird apartment complex. It was set up for singles. They used to have these apartment complexes. If you were single, you could go there, and the whole idea is that you would hook up, right? There was a lot of hooking up. There was a lot of hooking up going on. I could tell you a bunch of weird fucking stories from this place, but I'm gonna have to save them for the memoir if I ever write. Let me see if I can tell you one. Let me see if I can. Oh God, they're so salacious. To give you an example, should I? I'll tell you one, but I won't tell you the whole story. This will give you an idea how salacious like this place was. And remember, I'm not very like 19 years old, 20 years old. So this is a whole new world for me. Hanging out with these horny professional baby boomers. Not in a literal sense, but I worked in I was the assistant recreation director. So there was this guy who came by a lot. I'm not going to say his name, but this guy who came by a lot. And he was this interesting character. He always had a bit of a kind of a gleam in his eye. And he looked slightly like he was always kind of up to something, right? But not up to something in a way where it would creep you out. There's a difference. There's a difference with people like that. Because there are people that look like they're up to something, and they're up to something, and you're like, you got your eye on them. This is more along the lines that this guy had a secret, and that you weren't in on it, but he was having a good time with his life and his supposed secret, whatever it was. And he was kind of he was fairly quiet, but he did talk a little bit. Pretty decent pool player, and he was. He moved a lot, right? You could tell he had some energy beneath the surface of things, and he was married, and every now and then his wife would come by, and she might have been a little bit older than him, and his wife was, she was okay. She was kind of maybe a bit of I don't know, stick up her butt, but okay, right? She had kind of a vibe, not a real friendly and welcoming vibe, but she wasn't a complete and utter bitch either. I had more interaction with him than I did her, but I knew she was around. So anyway, I'll give you the kind of the G-rated version. Or PG version. I became friendly with this woman who would come by. She was older, and she'd hang out and play pool. So I got to know her a little bit. And one day I was at her, and she didn't live there. She lived in the apartment complex that was like down the road. It was still one of these swinging singles apartments, but it wasn't as nice. So I was hanging out at her place one day, and she brought out these Polaroids. She was showing me these Polaroids, and these were Polaroids of her and this dude that I was just telling you about, the married guy. And she's showing me like all this shit they were doing, and which involved things like oral sex. I mean, I'm trying to keep it high level, but just fill in the blanks. These are Polaroids, okay? And she's showing me all these Polaroids. I'm like, what? You got some busy going on here, right? So then I said, yeah. So you I guess you two are like hanging out, right? She said, oh yeah. He comes over on the weekends, and we buy all these drugs, and we just sit around all weekend and do drugs and screw. I'm like, oh, okay. So this is what it's like to be an adult in the modern world. When she said drugs, I knew exactly what she was talking about. They would buy like copious amounts of cocaine and get big bags of weed and basically get fucked up and fuck all weekend. And these Polaroids were the example of their time together. So then there's this other guy that lives at the complex. It's a very different kind of dude. Okay, this guy was like a music nerd. He was very into music and vinyl, and you know what I mean. He was a music nerd and nice guy, but he was complaining about the women's lib movement. And the women, he said, oh yeah, all these women, they want you to get in touch with their feelings. Get in touch with your feelings. Then when you get in touch with your feelings, they don't like you. And they're going out with some guy who's not in touch with their feelings. Like he was kind of, and there's some truth to that. The women kind of laid this thing down. It's like, well, okay, you're not going to get in here unless you can show me that you're in touch with your feelings. So men, of course, like, okay, well, I got to, I'm a 5-alarm fire right now, so I better get in touch with my feelings. They get in touch with their feelings. Okay. But that didn't really work out. So that was happening with Chiron and Aries starting roughly 1968, going up through the middle part of the 70s. And there were some interesting movies that came out during that time. Carnal Knowledge is one of them. And Carnal Knowledge is a total Chiron and Aries movie with Jack Nicholson and Art Garfunkel and Anne Margaret. I think Michelle Phillips in that movie. It's a great movie. And it has to do with sex, power, but it also gets into the Chiron and Aries piece around men using sex for power. And clearly the Jack Nicholson character does that. In a lot of ways, Carnal Knowledge is a horror movie because you get to see Jack Nicholson turn into this monster before your very eyes with this movie. And the last scene of the movie is with Rita Moreno, and she plays this hooker, and it almost feels like there's this ritual going on, and she has to light these candles, and she has to like tell him how great he is and what a man he is and all these things, right? So he can basically get a rise because he's completely become so desensitized around sex and intimacy. But then the interesting part is that the other side of that story is the Art Garfunkel character. And the Art Garfunkel character does play the sensitive man. He does play the sensitive guy. And he winds up hanging out with I think the actress is Carol Kane. And so he as a character is ineffective. The Art Garfunkel character is ineffective. And then you have the Jack Nicholson character who's on the other end of the spectrum, and he's ineffective in more ways than one. And it's a very interesting treatise on men, intimacy, power, and nobody gets out of that movie looking good. And it is a total Chiron and Aries movie. And so here we are with this is a Chiron and Aries rant, right? So here we are with Chiron and Aries. And what are we going through now? We're going through a lot, just in terms of what's a human, because Aries is not just, it's not just male energy. Okay. Aries is human energy. You know, we incarnate into the body. And when we do, it is the expression of will to incarnate. So Aries is incarnational energy. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. When you come into the body, you come into the first house, which is Aries house. So it's incarnational and volitional will energy. So, and it comes out in some ways in terms of, you know, and but by the way, this has been going on for a while. You know, we had to go through a bunch of Donald Trump with Chiron and Aries, and that really tweaked a lot of people's. And even Elon Musk is starting. I can't even think of anybody who would be less threatening than Elon fucking Musk, who has Mars and Aquarius in his 8th house, which is, you know, he's got some weird shit going on there. But now even Elon Musk is like rattling the cages of these people who are feeling very insecure, because when you get into Chiron and Aries, there's a lot of insecurity, just kind of free floating insecurity about people's individuality. And so what happens is that it forces us to move into other areas of our chart. Usually with Chiron, we go to the opposite sign. It's like, okay, we're going to go into Libra and we'll bond. But what are we bonding with? You know, what's the bond here? So there's a very interesting dance going on. And the thing with Chiron in Aries is that I think it's okay to admit your vulnerability, but then you've got to be able to move past it. Like, you can't stay in it, because what happens is that you'll just get fucking trampled. You'll get trampled because the world does not really respect vulnerability, not the vulnerability that is used in a display of, what's the word I'm looking for? In a display of transparency with the individual. It's not always recognized. But the other side of it with Chiron, and this is the other side, and you'll get the bleeding edge of both sides of Chiron, is that there will be people who will indulge in vulnerability, and they're over vulnerable. And we've seen that too with Chiron and Aries. I mean, my God, everybody's triggered this. It's all Chiron and Aries stuff, because the threat of violence, disincarnate violence, the threat of disincarnate violence is in the air. And I believe it is. How did it get here? Well, the threat of disincarnate violence is in the air because we have not redressed what I believe to be the threat of real violence in this world, which happens at a military level in countries that are experiencing quote unquote regime change. This goes all the way back to 9/11 in 2001, which really was you could get some of that, you can feel some of that prior to 9/11 with the Balkans War, a little bit. That's all undercover stuff though. You know, Clinton was sending troops over there. It's kind of like what we're doing now in a lot of ways with Ukraine. Oh no, we're not there. No, that's NATO. NATO's in the Balkans. No, we're there too. Right. That was all sort of undercover of the impeachment of Clinton, because that was going on, right? That was one of the reasons why Clinton did that. Then we move into 9/11, 2001, and it is blinded open aggression moving forward. And we go into the horror story of Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib and all these other things that come out, some of which are, in my estimation, psychological operations. But those existential threats to violence that are free floating, disincarnate in the air are still there, they have not had any kind of closure whatsoever. And even the awkward and rapid pullout from Afghanistan didn't offer any kind of real closure. It's not supposed to. That's not why they did what they did. They did it to create maximum chaos and to have people in this country feel absolutely shitty about how it was handled. That was staged to demoralize the American public. That's what it was staged to do. And it was there to show you that the person who was staging this he's Mr. Magoo. He has absolutely no business theoretically doing that. And even with all of the press and all the pundits, all the people who piled on after that happened, it really didn't matter. It didn't matter one iota. They did not give a shit, right? So there's no closure there. There was no closure whatsoever with Afghanistan. And you don't have to admit that, oh, well, we lost that, right? We lost that war. No, you don't really have to admit that. You could have we shouldn't have been there in the first place, but that's a whole other story. But all these things have not closed. There are all these kind of open wounds that have a ramification on, our collective consciousness in a lot of ways. And then the other thing too is that if you go back and you look, that's internationally now, domestically, and we're in the second decan, so we're in the Leo decan. We've been in the Leo decan for a while, so a lot of this tends to be very dramatic, right? Like the pullout from Afghanistan was very dramatic. It's like, holy shit, they had their fake plane and everything, but still, nonetheless, it was pretty dramatic. The other thing is we went through the summer of Floyd, which is 2020, with Chiron and Aries. And what did we see? America was on fire. There was violence in the streets. That's what was going on. Did that change? No. Have we put a cap on that? No. We had Antifa going nuts in cities across America, burning shit down, and that has not been resolved. You've got states like California, which are encouraging people to walk into a Walgreens and steal up to $995, and nothing will happen to you, right? So there's a reason why you get people that are so in a trigger space. There's a reason why people are, kind of feeling vulnerable and unsafe, because they've cultivated a greater feeling. It's not a greater feeling, it's actually a lesser feeling, but it's a lesser feeling of a greater sense of not being safe. Like that's out there, right? That is out there. The order, for whatever it looked like, and we've had various levels of order in our society in the West, right? The order that exists now is not any kind of order that we would recognize. And so when you have Chiron and Aries, of course you're going to feel it. Of course people are going to feel not safe, right? That's just going to happen. So you're going to have people that are going to act out through that unsafety, and they're going to accuse certain people, right, of perpetrating violence. We're going to get into that tonight, by the way, when we get into Argentina. The very interesting article that emerged over the last couple of days in Argentina that kind of gets into this a little bit. So this is where we are right now, and we're still in that second decan. The United States' Chiron is at 20 Aries, so the United States will go through its Chiron return, and I can only imagine what that is going to look like. And when we get Mars coming back at the end of May, and eventually gets into that conjunction with Chiron, that's going to be very intense. And a lot of times, what happens is we deal with. And I will say this too. Let me just say this. I'm going to get this right out on the table. I think Americans in general have shown incredible restraint. Maybe One might say that maybe too much restraint. But Americans in general have shown incredible restraint given the times that we're living in, and given the amount of firearms that are owned in this country, the this free floating sense of vulnerability and violence, and even what I would say to some degree disempowerment. Or you would think that in a normal environment that people would go all Charlie fucking Bronson on the world. You would think that, right? But that's not been the case. In a country that has the most firearms in the hands of private citizens anywhere, maybe in history, the incidence of people losing their shit and going all Charlie Bronson is not happening. And I will say that I think that says a lot about the American public, that the amount of restraint that is being exhibited is enormous under the amount of pressure that people are under on a daily basis. It doesn't mean that people don't crack. It doesn't mean that they won't crack. I have a feeling we're going to start to see more of that, especially when this other eclipse kicks in. But this is a very interesting point that not a lot of people talk about, because if we wanted to, we have some very dark parts of our human nature. Whatever, wherever we come from, whatever our point of origin is, the part that is that does not reach up into the rational or the logical world, where it says, if I do this, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. No, there's a side of us that if we are pushed to the brink, or if something gets very extreme, we could probably do things that we would not normally do, because we just know that, number one, there's a series of consequences that happen if you do that thing. That's number one. Number two, for the most part, we are still living under this Western Christian ethos. And in that world, you don't do that. So these are the two factors, right? The consequence on a civil and criminal judicial level, and a consequence on a spiritual and religious level, right? Those two things have played a huge part for keeping the West from completely going berserk. Now, it does happen. There are incidents of people doing that, right? You remember, what was his name? John Lee Muhammad. Remember that guy? Now, that guy lost his shit. And this is something that a lot of people, they don't, this guy, John Lee Muhammad, and his young sidekick, I believe his name was Lee Malvo. Like, these guys were cruising around. I bet you Cheryl remembers this. Cheryl's from Baltimore, Maryland. They were cruising around Baltimore, in I think Washington and Virginia, and they were picking people off. And I think John Muhammad was he was in the Army. I think he was a sharpshooter, and he'd rigged his car up so he could lay down in the trunk of his car. Like, he'd taken it out the back seat, and he'd lay down in the trunk of his car, and he had a bolt action rifle. He was picking people. He must have killed at least 40 people. So it doesn't mean that people don't lose their shit. They can, right? We've seen that. But think about where we've been over the last 2 years, and think about the restraint that people have exhibited. It's almost superhuman. Some people would say that it could be dysfunctional restraint. You'll have to weigh in on that. But whoever fires the first shot generally loses. Well, unless you're in a war. If you're in a war, whoever attacks first generally wins. That's one of the unwritten rules of war. In a civil conflict, right? Like, whoever fires the first shot in our time usually loses, because it is unprovoked, theoretically, right? This is what happened with the American Revolution. Supposedly, the Brits fired the first shot, so that gave the Americans the moral high ground. Now, there's some debate about how that went down and who really fired that first shot, but as far as we know, the history books have quoted to be a certain way. Anyway, we have shown incredible restraint with Chiron and Aries. Again, maybe too much. But when Mars comes into play, so what are we talking? We're talking in June. We get that Mars Chiron conjunction. I think restraint will be at a premium. It'll be at a premium because there's a lot of pressure now that is beginning to add up. The pressure, the amount of pressure is very intense. Very intense. And it's amplified by social media. So when we get Mars moving into Aries, what's it going to do? It's going to square Pluto. So we're going to have Mars Pluto square as it moves through the sign of Aries. Mars has been behind the sun since October. So, in the world, right, in the sky, the night sky, we haven't seen Mars, but it comes back in May. So not only does it come back, it comes back in Aries. It doesn't come back in Taurus. It doesn't come back in Cancer. It comes back in Aries. So that's a big Mars. It's a big bang. Very big bang. And I think it's especially that period there, the conjunction with Chiron, and I would say not quite in a square with Pluto, but getting close, getting very, very close. By the way, we're coming up on Mercury retrograde. That's happening. Yeah, another Mercury retrograde. It's here. Hey, Mercury retrograde. You get to misplace shit. It's in Gemini. Be careful how you drive with Mercury retrograde in Gemini. I've shared this story before. I'll share it again because some of you are new. This is great. People leave, people come, so I get to share some of the old stories. All right. It's another one of these stories, man. It's like a little. I have to save part of it for the memoir because there is a part of it that it could possibly land me in some hot water, possibly. But I'll tell you the part I can't tell you. Let's just say it was kind of a Lou Reed waiting for my man moment. All right. That's all I'll say. Not the same thing that Lou Reed was waiting for. Same kind of waiting for my man. And I was with this guy, very interesting character. And we were in my van, and we were behind Rainbow Groceries in San Francisco. This is the new Rainbow, the one that's kind of by the Embarcadero, underneath the Embarcadero. So we're back behind Rainbow Groceries, and these are cool guys. I like this guy. And he said, "Well, tell me about Mercury retrograde." This is Mercury retrograde. I said, "Well, Mercury," and it was in Gemini. So Mercury retrograde, especially Gemini, you really got to watch your driving, because a lot of times when Mercury is retrograde in Gemini, people are in a hurry to get somewhere. They're not paying attention, and accidents can happen. And as soon as I said that, this guy comes flying around the corner. He can't make the turn, and he smashes into a parked car. I shit you not. And I look at him. I said, just like that. You should see a look at this guy's face. He was like, what the hell just happened? It was like the most visceral astrological demonstration I'd ever been a part of. And I was a little freaked out because the timing of it was almost unreal. And I said, you know what? I think we should go. And he's like, yeah, I think we should go too. And so we took off. So Mercury retrograde in Gemini, boys and girls, it's going to start in Gemini. It's going to go back into Taurus, but it's starting with the Mercury retrograde in Gemini. Drive safe out there. Please drive safe. Because when it goes back, it's going to start to square Saturn, right? We get into Mercury Saturn squares, which we're still in now. And we've seen the Mercury Saturn square with this whole Elon Musk and Twitter deal, right? We've seen it. It's like, oh, Elon Musk it's just, the whole thing is bizarre. And we're watching Elon Musk morph into, some conservative free speech wet dream. Not me, but people are that, they've been just waiting Been waiting for somebody to come on the scene and try to clean things up a bit since Donald Trump left the scene in a bit of disarray there. So now you've got all these people who are just drinking the Kool-Aid at Musk fountain, right? But we're seeing this. It's the whole Twitter thing. And anyway, it's ridiculous. So we've got all these nice, wonderful, beautiful Piscean planets. And you can kind of lean into them a little bit right now, right? Like right now, we've got the moon tonight coming out of the eclipse at 25 Taurus. Got a nice sextile with Jupiter going on. So I had a Jupiter, moon Jupiter sextile moment today. Met some new friends, some good people from Canyon Lake area came up, and these people are really good at, building a garden and raising chickens. And said, hey, would you like us to come by and, show you the ins and outs with chickens? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'd love to lean on your support because I don't know shit about chickens. All I know is I think I'd like to have chickens because I'm seeing what's happening with animals in our world, and chickens in particular. I'm like, this might be a good investment. So I came up here and I showed them the space and everything. It was cool just to get to know them, right? And then we had some lunch, and then we went to go to Tractor Supply, and we looked at the chicken coops, and we looked at the chicken runs, and we looked at this like cattle gate stuff, right? How you have to jam it into the ground to keep the raccoons out. Like I got a great chicken initiation today. So to me, this is the moon in Taurus. It's the moon in Taurus, connecting with other people, sharing food with them, sextiling into Jupiter and Venus in Pisces, kind of blending, right? Blending into relating with some other people. It was cool. It was a good time. So this energy, the moon tomorrow, when you wake up, I think will probably be very late Taurus and will move into Gemini. Now that's going to be kind of kooky, right? So later in the day tomorrow, we get the moon in Gemini conjuncting Mercury, which is going to go retrograde. So being able to speak about your emotions and clearly speak about them could be a good thing. When Gemini, anybody that's ever had moon in the third house, although my kid has moon in the third house, he's not really good about speaking about his emotions. A lot of moon third house people do speak about their emotions. They have to. It's a given. Trust me, it's a given. And I've had people that I know, you got moon in the third house, you got to talk about how you're feeling. That's the way it is, right? So we get into this moon conjunction with Mercury. The thing is, right, if you are talking about how you're feeling, you're probably talking about it with another person, theoretically. And then they need to be able to hear what you're talking about and how you're feeling. When you get into Gemini, especially you get two planets with the moon and Mercury, there's a danger with the feelings becoming so kind of intellectualized, so abstract that the good part is that you could probably talk about things and not get bogged down with sentimentality or too much emotion. That's not bad. The downside of it is that you can be just so kind of intellectual about what you're actually feeling that it doesn't really make any sense. It's like, why are you even sharing this? All you're doing is kind of rationalizing how you feel. That's part of it too. So with Gemini, we know it cuts both ways. We know that's how Gemini operates. The other thing is that it's a little crazy. That's kind of a crazy aspect because Gemini is a little schizophrenic. It's just the nature of it. And I'll never forget my initiation into Gemini. I had this woman I was seeing when I was in college. And she was like my first hardcore Gemini initiation. And she did such Gemini shit. I remember one time we were at kind of club bar in San Francisco, and we're hanging out, and where'd she go? Kind of a Gemini thing, right? Where'd she go? Next thing I know, I see her out on the dance floor, and she's dancing with some dude. I'm like, oh, okay, well, what's this all about? And I think I was drinking a beer or something. But then she comes, as soon as the song is over, she comes over to me and she starts hanging out with me. I'm like, it was a total Gemini. So this guy now thinks that, well, I may have a chance with her, right? She's dancing with me and she's really into it. And then she comes running over to me like, oh, I'm with this guy. I'm like, oh, well, now I got to bond with this dude, I guess, right? It's like such a Gemini fucking thing. It was a Gemini thing. And I'm like, this is kind of infantile in a weird way, right? So that was my initiation. And I was kind of getting out over my skis with her, because I started to get into this weird place where I began to lose myself a little bit, because there was a part of me was like, get the fuck out of this. And it was weird. It was like a supernatural relationship. And one night we were at this college that I had gone to, and we were kind of walking around. It was at night. It was during the summertime. And I went to go put something, like I think we'd eaten some food or something. I was putting the bag in this trash can. And as soon as I put the bag, this fucking cat jumps out of this trash can. Like it scared the shit out of me. I don't know if it was a black cat or not, but for the sake of the story, let's just say it's a black. It was like, what the fuck, so there was this weird stuff going on, and I felt myself going into this kind of dark place with this person and not really being able to kind of extract myself. We've all had like relationships like that, right? And I think it was the Gemini thing in a lot of ways. So it got to this point where one night, it was a day. I know the day exactly. It was 4th of July. I think it was 1983, 82. 4th of July, 1982. And we were in Pacifica, if you know where Pacifica is. And we had managed to find this spot. It was one of those rare days in Northern California, 4th of July. It was actually sunny and warm. Although there, Pacifica, overlooking the Pacific Ocean, it was a little windy. But we managed to find this place. And we kind of climbed down onto the kind of, the cliffside. And, we took off our clothes and we were hanging out, right? Drinking wine and just hanging out. I was like, cool. This is what you're supposed to do in Northern California in the 80s. You take your clothes off, get some rays, drink some wine, hang out, and read Rainer Maria Rilke. This is what we were doing. And I remember at one point I said, okay, I gotta go use the bathroom. So I was just gonna take a pee, right? I could have just like walked a few feet away and take a pee. We're fucking naked. We've seen each other. It's like not a big deal. But for some reason, I don't know what drove me to do this. I walked about maybe 15 to 20 yards away. And I really wasn't paying attention to where I was going. And all of a sudden I found myself on this cliff face, and there was maybe about that much of the cliff trail. And then right below me is just, the Pacific Ocean, and not close. Like that was like a death ledge. And I found myself in this precarious position. I'm like, okay, this is a sign. I'm out over my skis. I'm on the edge here with this person. And it kind of took on that tone and quality. Eventually, she went away to school and the whole thing ended. But that was my initiation to Gemini, and it was very intense because there was definitely a part of her that was, I would say, borderline in kind of, not all Geminis were like this, but I just need to be very clear about this. Very clear. And she became a school teacher, and that's the third house. That's what Gemini does, right? It's teaching school. That's early childhood education, third house. Well, that's what's happening. In the United States has Aquarius in the third house, and Moon in Aquarius, by the way, I think at 29 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. So what have we seen with the United States chart? We've seen Saturn going through the third house of the United States chart. What are we dealing with education? We're dealing with people waking up and saying, we got to put a fucking limit on this thing. Right. And what are they talking about with Aquarius? They're talking about everything that is outside the box. That's what's going on. So now Saturn comes in there. It's like, go to the school board meeting or have Ron DeSantis pass this. That's Saturn. It is going through the U.S. third house. Education. So that's how the third house works. So I would say that this week is highlighted by Mercury retrograde. That's number one. Number two, the Moon conjunction with Mercury when it goes retrograde. Because when it does happen, and it will happen, right? It will happen. When it does happen, it's not just Mercury going retrograde. The Moon doesn't go retrograde, but if it could, it would when a Moon conjuncts Mercury under Mercury retrograde in Gemini. So it's not just how we speak or communicate, it's how we feel. Also, the Moon represents homes. This is another point here. And I would not be surprised if we start to see some very weird stuff with homes in the housing market over the next week. We can have Wells Fargo already laid off their mortgage stuff, right? So that's kind of in the air already. That happened in the eclipse window last week, not this week. And I would assume that when we get into the lunar eclipse, which we'll get into tonight, that'll happen in Scorpio. That is the home, right? You're dealing, the Moon is your emotional, the Moon is your emotional values. And the Moon is the ruler of the fourth house. Right? It's Cancer's house. So when we get into an eclipse moon in Scorpio with the South Node, and we get into things like mortgages and lending and other people's money, the whole thing around private ownership, around property, like that's going to be a big thing. Right? It already is. It's going to be a bigger part of the discussion. We see a company like BlackRock going and buy huge tranches of residential housing. Like, there's something afloat here, right? So I would say keep your eye on the housing market over the next few weeks, particularly even this week with starting this week and going up through the eclipse on the 15th. Keep your eye on the housing market. If you're in a position to buy some property, if you've been holding out, I think we might see the top of the market. That's quite possible. But if we see the top of the market, then we're going to see a bunch of other things bottom out. So it won't just be the house. Like, oh, gee, hey, isn't it great? We've been on the sidelines for a while. We sold our place. And now we get to move in. If that happens, I guarantee you there will be other factors that will also kick in at that time. Will it be the 40% inflation that Argentina is experiencing, which we'll talk about? Probably not. But we're in precarious territory, and there's just no physical way that the planet can repay the debt. It's not just the United States, the entire planet. There's no fucking way the planet can repay the debt. What's owed on the debt, the planetary debt, whether it's China, whether it's the IMF, the World Bank, the central bankers, the Rothschilds, the people that you don't know about, never heard about, right? Whoever's holding the debt, there's no way that the entire planet can pay it all. So it's over leveraged. And at some point they will come to collect. And that point is probably coming a lot sooner than we realize. Right? It all depends on the conditions. They have to whittle down. They have to whittle down the last bits of resistance. Right? They have to whittle down as many resources as people can have so that, when that moment comes, there's going to be very little resistance. This is Sun Tzu. This is how wars are fought. You wear the people down. You wear the populace down. So that when they lower the boom, you can't do anything, right? So we're in a very long, protracted phase of decline. And it started with Uranus and Taurus. Once Uranus went into Taurus, we've gone into a decline and de-evolutionary phase. So these next few weeks, I think, will be very, very telling, especially when we go into Mercury retrograde with that moon conjunction Mercury, and we have the eclipse coming on the 15th with the South Node. A lot of fear. I feel like that eclipse has a lot of fear. Has a lot of fear associated with it. Whether you want to buy into it or not, that's up to you. Some of it might be real, there's a reason why fear exists, because you want to stay out of danger. Fear is a valid thing. You want to stay out of danger. Too much fear and you become paralyzed. You won't be able to do anything. So pay attention, right? Sometimes you can, watch your fear emerge, and surface. People have anxiety attacks. I've had anxiety attacks. It's very interesting to see them happen. Usually what happens is you get cut off from your first chakra. If you're cut off from your first chakra, it's much harder to ground yourself. You don't know how to act. You really don't. You don't know how to act. You don't know how to respond. You're acting out of a place of not self. And when we get into Taurus, we are into the first chakra region when we're into Taurus. So we have all this Taurus energy, and we just had this solar eclipse, and we'll have the lunar eclipse. You got to have the sun in Taurus when you have a lunar eclipse in Scorpio. That's the bottom line. So this is really kind of a metaphysical test of how you can stay grounded. And it's not easy. Like if you've ever been in a place where you're being cut off from whatever that is, like you're afraid of losing something, whether it's a person, a possession, a job, your freedom, your safety, whatever that is, right? You're scared. Like things aren't going to be the same. And a whole cascade and domino effect takes place after that. This is what happens. Now, when you're younger, those fears can be really hysterical, right? They can be as you get older, they're not as hysterical. You've got a little bit of a track record, but you still are trying to find a way to make some adjustments inside yourself so you can fucking function in the world, right? We're kind of coming into that period where I feel like there's a lot of like psychological and emotional displacement based on the values that are related to security. This gets back to Chiron and Aries. We're living in very insecure times. Nobody really knows where this thing is going. You really don't. Like I have a sense, right? We're in this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which happened. It was a big fucking deal. And it happened on the 21st of December in 2020, which is a 20-year cycle. And we are now in the contraction and expansion period of the birth of something new, okay? It's not just Saturn dictating the terms and conditions as to how we're going to move together into what I would call a quote unquote new age. I'm not saying it is the new age, but it will be a new age because the old age is over. It's done. And we may have a few reminders of what it looks like. They're fossils. So we know that we're in this place. We know that we're in a birth phase, and it will happen. And I believe ultimately it will be positive, right? But there is a path from here to there. And it is a very, very Byzantine, labyrinthian path that we're on. And nobody really knows where things are ultimately going. If you think you know, again, because we're in Aquarius, guess what? You'll find out pretty quickly that you really don't know. And if you don't know where you're going, guess what? There's a chance you may get a glimmer as to where we're going. This is how Aquarius operates. So when we're in a place of unknowing, people get freaked out. They have panic attacks and they have anxiety. The challenge is to be able to ride through it and figure out how to stay open during those times. When I say open, that's everything from your sphincter to your heart to your mind. And it's not the easiest thing to do. It's not. People don't have a lot of practice. You know why? Because people want to live in a state of relative comfort and ease. And by the way, I don't blame them. when you're in comfort and ease, guess what? Your world works better. You feel confident. You can adapt and adjust to situations, right? What people don't usually do is court discomfort and anxiety as a strategy to learn how to deal with them. May not be a bad thing. For some of us, we're kind of far down the line, right? If you're young and you wanted to be, well-rounded, I would say put yourself in a position where you can conquer your fear around anxiety and fear. You can do that and you'll survive anything, right? This is the key. This is the big key. Really, the big key is how we get through this time when things begin to shut down and we go look around and go, oh, fuck. Like we have the oh, fuck moment. And they're turning the water up on the frog pot, right? It's getting hotter and hotter. And, a lot of the frogs out there are just like, okay, but it is going to reach a boil. So how are you going to get through it? How are you going to, when you're in that place, and we have all of coping mechanisms. Sometimes some are better than others. You can wait it out. You can do whatever you do. Right? The key is you have to get through it because you will get through it. But what will you learn? Will you just say, got through that one? Or will you learn something? Will you learn something? That's the key. All right. Let's get into the celebrity shit. Let's get into some clickbait. All right. So we all know that there's the trial. We had this Ghislaine Maxwell trial, and it was like, a pimple on Lizzo's ass. Sorry, she's the only person I know that has a big butt because I've seen it. Right? That's what the Ghislaine Maxwell trial was. It was a pimple on Lizzo's ass. It was a big ass. Okay, equal opportunity. I think she had a big ass at one point. Roseanne Barr had a big ass. Maybe she doesn't anymore. I don't know. Right? Think of somebody has a big ass, put a pimple on it. That's what the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. It came and went, right? We don't know what the fuck happened to Ghislaine Maxwell. We don't even know if she was in the room. Who the fuck knows? Mystery trial of the 20th century. And we had the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. We had all the cameras in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. We got to see Kyle Rittenhouse cry. We got to see the ridiculous prosecuting attorney mishandle a gun. Looked like there was a green screen going on there. There's plenty of weird shit, right? And now we've got a month's worth. I think we're into fucking week 4 with the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. It's like the trial that never ends. It is incredibly entertaining in a bizarre way. But you put it up against the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, and you just sit there and scratch your head. Okay, this is the society of the spectacle. That's what we're in. The society of the spectacle. And who knows where the fuck Ghislaine Maxwell is? I mean, she could be anywhere. She could be somewhere in her underground condo with Jeffrey Epstein, snorting blue flake cocaine and having sex with Britney Spears' clone. Who knows? Right. So we know that this trial, by the way, the interesting thing about this trial, and this is what I talked about, and this is the link with Elon Musk, which I'll get into. The interesting thing about this trial is the amount of personal evidence that they've accrued. Now, remember, these people, I think they broke up in 2015. And so they have a shit ton of personal evidence, everything from texts, emails, recordings. They recorded each other, which is, I think mostly audio recordings, right? Mostly audio recordings, but I think there's video. There's video from the apartment complex. There's an accrual of personal information, and it feels like these are like the trials of the future. And when we think about Elon Musk, he's buying Twitter. What's Twitter going to do? It's going to accrue. It already does. What is Elon Musk going to do with the information that can be scraped from Twitter? A lot of complex relationships and associations, right? And we don't have enough time to go through all of them. But what we're watching is we're watching a trial where personal communication and social media is being brought into the public eye. We're being shown how these things have either created or detracted from somebody's character in somebody's case. That's what we're watching. And I think it's interesting that it's happening while Elon Musk bought Twitter. Of course, Elon Musk has this whole Starlink thing. He's just announced he's going to start to build robots. Somebody else is building the robots. It's not going to be Elon Musk. He'll have his name on it. They'll all look like him. Wouldn't that be a trip? All these robots look like fucking Elon Musk. Think of iRobot, but instead of the robot, it's an Elon Musk face. It could happen, but I don't think it will. So we're seeing, right, like this kind of weird mirror effect between all this information and data that's been accrued really since 2015. We're going on 7 years with this thing. 7 fucking years. There are people that did depositions in 2016. Now it's finally starting to come to trial. So that's one of the weird parts of what's taking place. It's a trial unlike any trial I've ever seen. People's their pasts are being exhumed. And we're watching Johnny Depp. I don't think he's bleeding out. I think he's enjoying it. He doesn't give a shit. Johnny's been through the cremation of care probably. But Amber Heard she definitely was handing him his ass in that marriage. Now, I have a theory, and we're going to get into that theory now. So we're going to look at all the players. Why don't we start with the one chart that probably a lot of people, want to look at? That is the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp chart. Okay, so what do they look like in terms of their sinistry? It's a very interesting chart. Just throw it up here. Okay. Right here. Here we go. All right. So in astrology, for people who are not aware of relationship charts in astrology, there's the sinistry charts, and then there's midpoint composite charts. Those are the two. There are variations, especially in the midpoint composite, but those are the two main ways that we look at relationships through astrology. Now, the sinistry chart is how two people show up in a relationship and where their planets line up. It's like two individuals that are sorting out their connection, right? When you get into a midpoint composite chart, you're looking at the chart of those two people as one entity. The charts are combined. And I think midpoint composite charts are really good to look at. Like if you're going to have a marriage with somebody, who are you together? What are you working on? Like what's your potential, right? Two people together, coming together, you're bringing your individual stories through sinistry. So why don't we do that? Let's take a look at Johnny Depp and Amber Heard sinistry. It's really fascinating. All right. So we're going to set the stage here. Johnny Depp is on the inner ring. This Amber Heard is on the outer ring. Johnny Depp is a Leo rising. Of course he is. Everything Johnny Depp does is predicated with Leo rising. It's very dramatic. Now he has Pallas here, which I think could be very helpful in terms of his creative potential. Right. I think Pallas kicked him pretty good when he took that Pirates of the Caribbean gig. He made a lot of money. He blew a lot of money too. And I think in a lot of ways maybe somewhere along the way he lost some of his instincts, because usually with Pallas conjuncting the ascendant, especially in Leo, the individual could be very, very good at understanding how other humans operate and being able to apply that, especially in Leo-like fashion. In Johnny Depp's case, acting is probably a pretty good aspect for an actor. He's a Gemini. We know he's a Gemini, right? He's born June 9th, 1963 in Owensboro, Kentucky. Keep the Kentucky part in your head for a minute. We'll come back to that. So where does Amber Heard line up? Well, Amber Heard, Johnny Depp has Venus in Taurus and Mercury in Taurus. Amber Heard's Venus is in an exact conjunction with Johnny Depp's Venus. In astrology, this is considered to be a very, very good aspect between Sinistry, right? In Sinistry, this is a very good aspect. Two people who would share some of the same values, right? Now, when we look at it, they're both conjunct Algol. So probably at one point in time, they probably wanted to choke each other. And Johnny Depp's got that Mercury conjunction with Venus. And if you watch him talk during the trial, he is not loquacious. But there's a reason for that, obviously. He's not going to sing like the caged bird. But there is something here, right, with Algol, that they both are trapped. They're both trapped around their throat, and they're both trying to liberate their sense of feeling trapped. And I feel like when he met her, I think he was still with Vanessa Paradis, and he met her, it was like, okay. The story he tells is that when they kissed during a scene for the Rum Diary, it changed his life. With the Venus conjunction, Mercury conjunct Venus. Yep, sure, I can see that. They have a connection, plain and simple. They have a connection. Now, Johnny Depp has Saturn in his 7th house. If you think about Johnny Depp and his relationships, not, from what we know, not a lot. I don't think he ever married Vanessa Paradis, but he had children with her. He had a girl and a boy, right? And I think for the most part, he was probably faithful until Miss Amber Heard came along. So Johnny Depp does not, if he had Jupiter in his 7th house, that's a lot. That's the potential for a lot of different relationships. The more the merrier, right? Saturn limits. And usually people have Saturn in the 7th house, they wind up committing to one person, and it can be a good thing. In astrology, Saturn is exalted, right? It's exalted. In Libra, it's exalted. Sorry, Jasper came by. Saturn in Libra is exalted. Here in the 7th house, we call it accidental exaltation. Best place for Saturn to be, I think, in a chart. If you want to have a relationship, be faithful, all that other stuff, right? Saturn, 7th house. So he's got Saturn in Aquarius. So Johnny Depp is going through his Saturn return. Look at that right there. 23 Aquarius. So Saturn's right about, so Johnny Depp started this trial. He started this trial with his second Saturn return. Interesting. Now, in astrology, they have both of their Venuses squaring Saturn. In the old days, this would have been considered a malefic in astrology. But what happened is that there were a couple of astrologers, I forget who they were, but they were working specifically on trying to understand the nature of couples and relating through astrology. So they interviewed a bunch of couples, they looked at their charts, and they found both in the Sinistry chart and also in the midpoint composite chart that there were Venus-Saturn squares. And again, traditionally, the idea is that if a Venus-Saturn square was, in action in a chart or in play in a chart, it was usually the death knell of a relationship. It would be hard. There would be all kinds of limitations. And they found that the most successful relationships had the Venus-Saturn square. Whether it was something like this with Depp and Heard, or whether it was in the composite chart, the Venus-Saturn square, bang. And by the way, I think in the midpoint, they'd still have that. Their Saturn would be different. because we'd have to find the midpoint between his Saturn, which is here, and her Saturn, which is here. So it would probably be somewhere like Saturn in Capricorn, which means that it would be probably a trine to their two Venuses. Typically, this would actually be a strong connection with two people who they're going to be involved with each other for a long time. And you know what? They are. Even though, like these, I'm going to tell you right now, these two people are still in a fucking relationship. Okay? They are still in a fucking relationship. Because they're still going through their shit, right? They're still going through the Venus-Venus conjunction and the Venus-Saturn square. And what's interesting is this whole thing with Mercury, like his Mercury conjunct her Venus and his Venus. And it's all, if you listen to the tapes, it's always about saying something. But it's like, they're trying to either get the last word in or say something that's healing or something. The communication thing is bizarre between the two of them. But you can see it there. It's like the arbiter between the two Venuses. It's usually Johnny Depp who's trying to theoretically play the arbiter, but with his Saturn here squaring her Venus, like that's not easy. And they have not been able to ditch each other. Here we are, 2012. They met in 2011. I think they met in 2010, and they're still, engaged in this thing, right? So honestly, they should just fucking be together. That they should just be together. That's my sense. Just, get over it. You're probably still into each other. You can't admit it. I bet they are. Because when I look at her, and a lot of times she's putting on a face and just like Johnny Depp is. But there are times when I've seen her and she actually looks sad. I think she's batshit crazy, but so is he. She looks sad. There's moments I've seen it. All right. Now, does she use him? I would say so. She met him on the set of, she got into the Rum Diary with him, right? That was the thing. Right there, there's her sun, there's her Mercury. In a perfect fucking world with two well-adjusted people, like Johnny Depp would help her. And he did. He got her into that movie. Now, I think it was one of her friends who accused her of using people for her career. Well, I don't know we do know where she's going to show up in Elon Musk's chart. It's not on his midheaven. Do you remember we saw this? Who did we see this with? We saw this with Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, right? And it was, I think it was Jada's planets tapping in to Will's Pluto and then the whole midheaven thing, right? So she's connected to his career. I mean, that's clear, right? She is connected to his career for better or for worse. Probably in this case for worse. Now he has his Saturn also on her midheaven. So what does she do? She meets an older dude on the fucking movie set. That's Saturn, right? That's Saturn. And that's what he did. He played the role of this older dude. She's younger. She's way younger than he is. She's born in fucking 1986. She's a millennial. And Johnny Depp is, he's a lot of people think he's Gen X. I don't think Johnny Depp is Gen X. They'd like to say, oh yeah, Johnny Depp, no, Johnny Depp was born 3 years after me. And, I don't think it qualifies as Gen X. He's not a boomer, but he's not Gen X. So we see the Saturn and the sun, right? And for him, it's like, oh my God, heat and light, right? She's the heat and the light. And that's going to be his muse with her sun and her true node. I'm sure if you sat down and talked with him, and the Rum Diary is apparently about 3/4 of it is good, and the last quarter of it is not very good. But he probably felt the sense of like being alive with this woman during the production of that movie. I bet he did. And there was even this one scene where, during the courtroom, where apparently he made a big deal out of this thing that happened. And there's a scene in the book where she's with this group of men and she's dancing at this club, and I guess her clothes come off. That's part of the book. And then I think after that, she disappears for a few days and she comes back all shaken and bruised, right? So the inference here is that in the movie, in the script of the movie, she winds up going off with these guys in Puerto Rico and winds up getting gangbanged by them for like 3. That's the inference in the movie. Straight out Hunter S. Thompson's mind, by the way, probably happened. So there's a scene where that's happening and it called for her to have her clothes off. And Johnny Depp stepped in. He said, no, wait. You don't have to do that. He says this in the trial. Because of the way the shot is, you don't have to take your clothes off. So that's very Saturnian, right? He's like, no, you don't have to do that. Like, oh, he's looking out for me. Is Saturn a good thing on her midheaven? Well, has it hurt her career? I don't really think so. I mean, she played some like, you know, she's in Aquaman. She played Aquaman's wife. Probably, you know, Aquarius, right? She's an Aquarian midheaven, and she's in the fucking Aquaman movie. Wonder what her relationship with Jason Momoa was like. That's a whole other story. Anyway, but man, they have a connection. Okay, I'm just telling you right now, they have a connection. It's a crazy connection, probably. They can't get away from each other with that fucking square to Saturn. His Saturn can't give her up. They both are very prominent in each other's lives. Right? She's got a sun true node in her 12th house. The house placement is important because Johnny Depp is a 12th house person. Look, there's his true node. There's her palace. Johnny Depp does not like being in the world. I don't even think Johnny Depp likes working. He's got that conjunction. Johnny Depp is weird shit with his mother. We know this. What's her name? Billy Sue or some shit like that. She's from Kentucky. She's got kind of a redneck name, I think. Now he's got issues with his mother, right? And look, her Mars in Neptune, her Mars is sitting right, and I mean right on his moon. So what does that mean? Well, it can mean banging sex, but also her temper is going to impact him. And she has got anytime you see somebody with a Neptune Mars conjunction, there can be really powerful creativity. But when that orb is so close, it's got Mars at 24 and then Neptune, she's got at, where is that Neptune? Let's see. It should be closer than that. Her Mars is at 11, okay? And her Neptune is at 5. That's 6 degrees, pretty close. That's a decent orb. So that can be creative with that orb, but still, there can be anger control with a Mars Neptune conjunction. And the emotions can get really fucked up in a lot of ways. Right? It can be pretty fucked up. So one of the things that like she should not drink. She shouldn't drink. She shouldn't do drugs. With the Mars Neptune conjunction, you got to have a handle on your emotions. It can be powerful emotional intensity, right? But when it's on his moon, man, like she can dump. And his moon is afflicted. It's in Capricorn. It's in his detriment, and he's got the South Node there. So the bullying thing with her, clearly you can see it there, right? But is he asking for it? That's the other thing. Was Johnny Depp asking to be bullied? I would say yes. I would say Johnny Depp was asking to be bullied. Johnny Depp had something inside of him. He was with Vanessa Paradis for a long time. He meets this woman who I think is kind of like his muse. She's kind of his muse. There's all this 12th house stuff going on, right? Like her sun is in the 12th house. She's a 12th house person. Her Venus is in the 12th house. His Venus connects up with her Venus in the 12th house, her 12th house. So there's a lot of stuff with this relationship that's behind the scenes. The things we'll never know and we'll never understand about these two people. Not that we really need to, but we'll never understand them, right? I think she's kind of a muse for him. It's hard to be in a relationship with a muse. They're sort of supernatural. And they have this weird, crazy 12th house connection. Nobody will understand it. And what we're seeing is we're getting a glimpse behind the scene, and they're crazy. You know, whatever happened in Australia with the cutting of the finger and all, I mean, fuck, you know, just fucking drop your suits and get back together. I'm serious. Will it happen? Stranger things have happened. Let me just say that. Right. But she dumps on him, and he kind of asked for it because he was in pain. His mother was dying, but there's another side of Johnny Depp. There's another side of the story that has to do with spiritual pain and what I would call supernatural possession. I'm going to get into that in a minute. I'm just trying to set the table for you here with, and her south node is right. Her south node is right on his IC. Living together, good luck. Good luck. This, to me, this relationship is fatal fucking attraction. Like they can't get out of it. You know, they're into this square with Saturn. They can't get out. It doesn't mean it has to be bad. I mean, sometimes those squares can be good if you're in a good relationship or one that's worth working on, right? It lends itself to what? Endurance, going through hard times. That's what it does. But down here, the home is hell. Her Pluto is conjunct his black moon Lilith. He's working out some fucking shit with his mother, with this woman. I tell you that right now. Black moon Lilith in a man's chart is the unresolved relationship with the mother. And he's got Neptune in his fourth house, and he's got black moon Lilith there. And she is going to open the gates of Pluto right onto that. And her south node is there. So her shit's going to come out. You know, her south node, Pluto, like she's got the thing with Amber Heard. She's got real, I think, supernatural, witchy, and occult energy. This woman should steer as far away. Now, she was somebody who was brought up in a Christian household. And when her best friend died when she was around 14 or 15, she became an atheist. And then she got into abortion and all this other shit, right? Like she donated half the proceeds of Johnny Depp's settlement to Planned Parenthood. Yeah. So she's got issues around children, childbirth. She had an in vitro kid, which I'll get into when we talk about Elon Musk. But I'm just telling you right now, their home life was a living hell. And Johnny Depp was taking the brunt of it. He has no boundaries. At home, he's got no boundaries. Not with Neptune here. Neptune in the fourth house, he grew up with no boundaries. Whatever. And I don't know much about Johnny Depp's life growing up in Owensboro, Kentucky or whatever. But I bet you it sucked. And I bet you his mother was an alcoholic and or a drug addict. And who knows, maybe she was into, you know, witchcraft. Who knows? I don't know. But clearly there's something there, right? So he's got unresolved issues with that black moon Lilith. And guess what? It's in Scorpio. And we're going to have this eclipsed moon in Scorpio. And what is his IC? So his MC's at 3 Taurus. So 3 Scorpio. So the moon will move through an eclipse phase, right? I think it's at 22 Scorpio. You'll move through an eclipse phase. He's got Neptune at 13 Scorpio. So this eclipse is going to be very interesting to see how it plays out with this trial. I feel like there's going to be a bit of a reversal here. And she won the trial in England when he sued. Well, it wasn't her. He sued. What was it? Was it the Guardian? It wasn't the Guardian. It was the other. It was the Mirror. Well, it was I think it was one of those. The British tabloids. Anyway, he sued them and he lost. And they brought out a lot of this shit. Right. The other thing is that there's a Uranus Sun conjunction in their chart. That's hard because he's trying to have, some degree of order, whatever, right? Some degree of order, and she's not going to bring it. There's always going to be something that's going to be super disruptive, and she's got Saturn and Uranus and Juno in his 5th house. I mean, Juno in the 5th house, Uranus in the 5th house, kind of cool, right? Kooky love, crazy love. Something new, something completely different. Saturn, no, Saturn's not fun. No, it's not fun in the fifth house. Saturn is it's a drag, right? The Uranian part is kind of exciting. The Saturn part not so exciting. So he's getting both kind of mixed messages. And Johnny Depp, I would say, considers himself a bit of an artist. So he's probably getting off on some of this, right? When you get into art, art and creativity, there are big, big troughs and then, really big waves that you ride, right? Troughs and waves. I think he's probably got part of that. So she was not a lot of fun. And the Uranus Sun opposition, good luck. She's always going to be rebellious. She's always going to do something to upset his order. And she also has Chiron conjunct his sun. So she's going to be a reflection for him. And she's kind of crazy, right? There's her black moon Lilith in Gemini. She has Chiron in Gemini. So she's a little nutso, right? She's a little nutso. She's hard to kind of gauge with black. She's like the French lieutenant's woman. She's a little schizophrenic. It's just the way it is, right? And she's going to be a mirror for him because that's how Gemini works. Like Johnny Depp would wind up getting in touch with his mental state or lack thereof with her. This is a totally fascinating chart. Totally fascinating. She's got her Jupiter conjunct his Chiron. So he's going to want to help her. He's and put himself through a bunch of shit, right? Go ahead, hit me. All right. Go ahead, do it again. Right? I mean, that's kind of like that's some Pisces stuff. I'm going to be your scapegoat. What an abusive, punch-drunk love relationship, but it's complex. This shit, I'm telling you, this is a complex relationship. Now she does have Moon in Libra. Poor thing. She's got Moon in Libra, so she's trying to find some balance around all this. And you can tell, right? She's trying to, she's off her rocker. She's trying to find some balance here in a weird way. She's got a borderline personality and she's got Moon in Libra. And guess what? It's in his third house. So she's going to talk about how she feels, which brings us right back to the Moon in Gemini. This is going to be an interesting week. We got Mercury in Gemini, Moon in Gemini. Keep your eyes on the fucking trial. It's going to get wacky. It's going to get weird. And who knows who else is going to. This is a very complex chart. Now, if they came to me and said, hey, what do you think of our relationship, Robert? You think we have a chance? I would say, well, you got some interesting things here. But if you're going to have a chance, this is what's going to have to happen, or else you guys are going to be, you're going to be in the Cuisinart and you won't be able to get out. And that's going to be the big thing. You're not going to be able to get. So you better be in it to win it. And did they ever get therapy? I don't know if they ever got. I think their therapy was wine. I think Johnny Depp spends $5,000 a month on wine. Isn't that it? That came out. Crazy chart. Crazy 12th house stuff going on. Right. He's just like diving into her 12th house. He likes it though. He likes it. Johnny Depp is a tragic romantic. He likes that shit. All right. Why was Johnny Depp in a world of hurt? Well, his mother was dying. What's her name? Peggy Sue, Billy Sue, something like that. Now, the other part of this equation, I talked about this, is Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson is the impetus for him to meet Amber Heard because they're hanging out, doing what they do. Who knows? Doing lines, watching dwarf porn. I don't know. Maybe worse. And getting smashed. And Johnny, they find Johnny Depp's, they find Hunter S. Thompson's unpublished novel called The Rum Diary. Let me show you a few pictures of Johnny Depp and Hunter S. Thompson. Now, they had become friends, and you know that Johnny Depp probably idolized Hunter S. Thompson. So when he got the opportunity, he looks like hell there. When he got the opportunity to be in the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. By the way, Bill Murray played Hunter S. Thompson in Where the Buffalo Roam. It wasn't very good. He's another crazy fuck, Bill Murray. But you can see here where this is a trippy picture, right? Johnny Depp is starting to look like Hunter S. Thompson. He's starting to look like him. They have this very strange connection, which I'm going to get into. And I remember I was working, I guess you can use that term loosely, at this magazine called Mondo 2000. And it was our last issue, which never made it. And one of the pieces was this guy who had written about the making of the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and had some connection with Johnny Depp and Hunter S. He was writing about it. It was going to be in the magazine. That issue really could have been. It's the lost issue of Mondo. It could have been so fucking great. We had a really incredible piece on this guy Peter Whitehead, who was part of the Rolling Stones inner circle, hung out with Howard Marks, and was connected to William Burroughs and Kenneth Anger and that whole scene. Very, very trippy character, Peter Whitehead. But it was the way it was laid out. The story was phenomenal. The Hunter S. Thompson graphics were phenomenal. We did a thing on John Perry Barlow. Phenomenal. It was great. It was just one of those issues. It'll never see the light of day, but it was amazing. Anyway, so the guy who was writing was telling us that Johnny Depp had spent like 4 or 5 months just hanging out with Hunter S. Thompson. So here he is. This is Benicio del Toro in the movie. And he really winds up looking a lot like fucking Hunter S. Thompson. He starts to channel Hunter S. Thompson in this movie. There they are doing what they do, which is get smashed and do lots of drugs. And yeah, there they are. That's both Johnny Depp, by the way. But he's looking a lot like fucking Hunter S. Thompson. There's Benicio del Toro, who plays the lawyer. This is the guy, right? This is Hunter S. Thompson's supposed lawyer. And Benicio del Toro plays him in the movie. Put on a bunch of weight just for the movie. It's a crazy fucking movie. Terry Gilliam directed it. So they spent a lot of time prior to the movie, during the movie. Hunter S. Thompson almost looks Chinese, doesn't he? Who else looks almost Chinese? Elon Musk. And doesn't Johnny Depp have like Filipino in him, I think? I think he does. Like he either has Filipino or Vietnamese in him. Hunter S. Thompson looks Chinese. Look at him. He looks like the Dalai Lama, right? A little bit there. How ironic. All right. So one of the things that you can hear on the recording of the trial, Johnny Depp is having this primal scream, and he is it's like this howl, and he's one of his fucked up periods. And so I talked about this on Giuseppe and Dave's show, so I'm going to talk about it here, so it's out there. Okay. How much do I want to share? Their show's a little obscure. I'll try to share as much as I can. Now, the reason I'm going to be a little obscure is because the father of the person I'm talking, I'm going to kind of skip over a little bit here. The father of the person who I is part of this story. I've written about this story before, and their father reached out to me and got kind of aggressive with me in a comment on my blog, which kind of spooked me a little bit. So I'm going to dial that back just a tad. So I ran into a private detective one time. This is probably around 2006, maybe 2007 in Santa Rosa. And there was a famous case that this guy had been working on. And I probably won't have to say very much about the famous case, but it was a young woman who was kidnapped in the Petaluma area. I'll say it, Polycloss. That's who it is. Okay, Polycloss. And this guy was talking about what had happened. He's a private detective. And I felt like there was all this weird stuff with the whole Polycloss case. And what's weird about it is that Polycloss grew up in the same area that Winona Ryder grew up in. Winona Ryder's real last name is Horowitz. And her father is the executor of all of Timothy Leary's letters. And his name is Michael Horowitz is his name, Michael Horowitz. And that's where they're from, right? So Johnny Depp was in what movie? Edward Scissorhands with Winona Ryder. Okay, interesting connection. Now, according to this private detective, certain things happened to Polycloss when she was abducted. And they were captured on video. And the person that captured those things was Hunter S. Thompson. And that Hunter S. Thompson, you could look this up, by the way, that Hunter S. Thompson has been fingered as being somebody who recorded snuff movies. Okay. Now, if you go back and you look at Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, both the book and the movie, it is the first mention of adrenochrome. And there's a scene in the movie where they take the adrenochrome and they're already whacked out. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is a bad acid trip. It's a really bad acid trip. And Terry Gilliam managed to capture it. Like, it's a movie at the end, you kind of feel nauseous. Like, what the fuck just happened here? Because there are funny parts, but there's something else going on in the movie that's not funny at all. Right? It's very disassociative. And so there's the adrenochrome thing shows up right in the book and in the movie. It's a big scene in the movie, really big scene. So Hunter S. Thompson would take copious amounts of drugs and alcohol and inhuman. So why would he be? And Johnny Depp wound up doing it too, by the way. Why would he do it? Why would Hunter S. Thompson do those things? Well, he would do those things if he was battling with his soul, right? If he was in a battle with his soul, then he would do those things so that he wouldn't feel anything. He would do those things so he could numb himself. And I believe that's what he was doing. He was numbing himself, and he learned how to. He was crazy, right? Hunter S. Thompson, like, there was a scene where he's on with David Letterman, I think. And what the hell is that bug? What is this? All right, what are you? It's going right over to me. All right. Maybe it's Hunter S. Thompson. Okay, no, go away. I don't think it's a scorpion. It's moving too fast. Boy, it is. It is trucking, man. This bug is trucking. He doesn't know where the fuck he's going, though. Anyway, he came right over to me. I have these weird moments with bugs when I do this show. So Johnny Depp, Hunter S. Thompson, it was crazy fucking moment. He talked about killing somebody on David Letterman, I think. Look it up. I'm not going to play it here. I might get a strike. Look it up. He means it. He's not joking around. Letterman thinks he's joking. He's not joking around. And this is the guy that Johnny Depp is hanging out with. During, prior to the movie, during the movie, and after the movie as well. He becomes a very close friend of Hunter S. Thompson. Spent, according to Johnny Depp, $5 million to put his ashes in a cannon and fire them 2,000 feet higher than the Empire State Building into the air. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring up Johnny Depp and Hunter S. Thompson's chart. Okay, that's another bug. Man, there are all kinds of fucking bugs here. What is going on here in Bugland? I think it's the same bug, but then there's this other bug. It's like what Wild Kingdom in here with bugs. All right. We're going to look at their charts. It's weird. These are fast moving bugs too. Like they're scooting, man. They're scooting. I don't necessarily mind bugs per se. Some bugs I don't like, especially if I don't know who they are. If I don't have a relationship with a bug, you know, certain bugs you have a relationship, like a beetle. You got a relationship with a beetle. I don't mind beetles, but unknown bugs that move at a rapid clip, I don't know. All right, let's get into their charts. The Bug Whisperer. Okay, so let's start off right away. They're both from Kentucky. Hunter S. Thompson from Louisville, Johnny Depp from Owensboro. Hunter S. Thompson born in 1937. Johnny Depp born in 1963. Okay. Now, when I look at these charts, a couple things really pop out. First of all, past life connection. There's Hunter S. Thompson's South Node in Gemini, conjunct Johnny Depp's Sun. Boom, right there. Unfinished business, right? Sun-Venus conjunction. Clearly simpatico. Johnny Depp, might actually be the more mature of the two in that relationship. But again, we're in that weird kind of Gemini place, right? Who else was over here? Yeah, we saw Amber Heard, and her Chiron is in conjunction with Hunter S. Thompson's Venus, right? So he's introduced to Amber Heard through Hunter S. Thompson in the book because they cast her. He cast her for the Rum Diary. So right there, bang. There's also this, weird kind of past life. Even though Hunter S. Thompson's older, Johnny Depp is probably the more mature one in a weird way. Right. So this is big. This South Node Sun conjunction is big. And Hunter S. Thompson also has, guess what? Chiron in Gemini. So Amber Heard is Chiron in Gemini. Hunter S. Thompson is Chiron in Gemini. They're like bookends, right? One is here and then one is here. And then Johnny Depp is in the middle. He's in the middle of the crazy. He loves it. In a weird way, right? Through Hunter S. Thompson, she's also opening him up to something. Now, I believe that Hunter S. Thompson took Johnny Depp into hell. Why do I believe that? Because here's Johnny Depp's true node. Here's Hunter S. Thompson's sun. Here's his Pluto. He's got a Sun-Pluto conjunction. That's intense in general, right? That's intense in general. Hunter S. Thompson also has Mars in Scorpio, and Hunter S. Thompson has been known. Well, he was known for these kind of superhuman feats of doing 1,000 push-ups and all kind. He was strong. He was a skinny fuck, but he was strong. He was able to somehow do all these drugs and all this liquor, and still, maybe it was a drink, who knows? But he takes Johnny Depp. Now, remember that Amber Heard has some of her planets also in Johnny Depp's 12th house, right? So she's taking Johnny Depp further into his. So is Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson is taking Johnny Depp into hell, right? He's taking him into hell with the Sun-Pluto conjunction in the 12th house. So Johnny Depp is dealing with a supernatural element with Hunter S. Thompson, without a doubt. And I think he still is. And now we can see where Hunter S. Thompson has Mercury in Leo, and he has it within, fairly close conjunction of Johnny Depp's ascendant. And Johnny Depp fucking sounds like Hunter S. Thompson. It's like he's channeling him. I think Hunter S. Thompson has taken possession, or whatever has taken possession of Hunter S. Thompson has also taken possession of Johnny Depp. And through there, Hunter S. Thompson is living through Johnny Depp still. That's my feeling. he has this reverence for Hunter S. Thompson that is almost Christ-like, but it's very dark. And I feel like there's some level of possession, and that Hunter S. Thompson was also offloading something onto Johnny Depp, because Johnny Depp has some sensitivity, right? He's got that true node in Scorpio, Neptune and Scorpio. There's a sensitivity there, right? So there's something supernatural about this arrangement. It's either being played, it certainly was played out when Hunter S. Thompson was alive. I can only imagine the den of iniquity. And you think that Hunter S. Thompson was able to hold back on the fact that if what I'm saying is true about their Hunter S. Thompson's extracurricular activity, do you think he was able to hold that back from Johnny Depp? If that is true. In the midst of their debauchery, do you think that is true? I don't believe it is. So I think Hunter S. Thompson took Johnny Depp to hell and left him there. That's what I think. And Johnny Depp's movies began to take on a certain tone. He did this movie, The Libertine, and it's a hellacious movie. He did The Ninth Gate, which is about a journey to hell, directed by Roman Polanski, another guy who's been in hell, right? Directed Rosemary's Baby. That was Roman Polanski. So I believe that Hunter S. Thompson initiated Johnny Depp into some very dark material. Well, the dark material was already there. There's that bug again. I'm going to have to help this bug at some point get out of this house, because I don't know what that bug is capable of. Anyway, yeah, right there, you can see it. This is the problem. I think this is really what's going on with Johnny Depp. It's this possession. And I think that who knows whatever the fuck else he's a 12th house guy, right? He's going to be in the 12th house. It's in Cancer, so you would think that, he would try to find love, nurturing, support in the 12th house. I don't know. Not with that Sun-Pluto conjunction there. Right. So these nodes are playing a significant role, right? Hunter S. Thompson is tapping into Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp is a vessel for him with that true node. I feel like in a lot of ways, it was a way for Hunter S. Thompson to offload something onto him directly or who knows what they did. I can tell you it was more than likely very dark. Hunter S. Thompson's a dark character. You see it in his chart. Right down here, we have his Mars in Scorpio, right? Mars, Scorpio, part of fortune. My bug is back again. He's got really big fucking antennae. He's small, but he's got big antennae. He seems lost. It's like Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp is a lost bug right now. Anyway, this Hunter S. Thompson chart, I think, is really telling. And even with his Jupiter, right? His Jupiter is on Johnny. So we have these Amber Heard. We saw Amber Heard's Mars over here. Again, there's something being played out. His Jupiter's over here, conjunct Johnny Depp's South Node. That's indulgence, right? He's going to take him into a world of very deep indulgence with Jupiter. And he's going to pay the price with Amber Heard. That's what's going on here. Like Jupiter is going to open him up into some weird world of drugs, carnal desire. Who knows what the fuck he did, right? And he's going to pay the price. Amber Heard's going to come along, and she's going to bring the Mars, and she's going to, be like Kali with him and begin to tear him apart. Very interesting chart. I think that's the problem. I think it's a Hunter S. Thompson problem. And remember, we had Saturn here. And Johnny Depp had a lot of fucking fun with this guy. I can tell you that right now. True node in Sagittarius, 5th house. And I'm not saying it was good fun. He had a lot of fun, according to Hunter S. Thompson and Johnny Depp. We've got other stuff here, right? Neptune's in a square with Johnny Depp's sun, also opposing Johnny Depp's Chiron. Who did we see over here? Amber Depp's Jupiter on Johnny Depp's Chiron. So there's this weird there's a strange thing going on here. Feels multi-layered, multi-dimensional. Is Hunter S. Thompson looking for some kind of absolution through Johnny Depp and Amber Heard? I mean, to me, this is really, really entangled and deep. Very entangled and deep. And Amber Heard had Pluto, right? Pluto down here in Johnny Depp's fourth house. Well, Hunter S. Thompson doesn't have Pluto, but he's got Mars and Scorpio. Pluto being the ruler, right? There's these weird layers of entanglement. And I don't think he's shaken Hunter S. Thompson at all. Not at all. Like he's got something very deep to work out with this guy, something metaphysical. It feels like perhaps they've even detrimentally bonded or fused in some ways. That's what it feels like. Here comes another. This is a spider now. It feels at some point these bugs are going to like run into each other. What's going to happen when these bugs run into each other? Here comes Rosie. She's going to jump in here. Okay, stay away from the bugs, okay? The bugs are not your thing. You can come up here, be part of the show. Stay away from the bugs. Come on. You gonna come up here? Well, come up here. Be part of the show. Come on. All right. Let's get on. Let's move on. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Right? Hunter S. Thompson is the X factor in this whole thing. Come on. And and Johnny Depp is trying to find some absolute, and maybe Hunter S. Thompson is some form of absolution through Amber Heard, whether it's forgiveness or denigration. And maybe Hunter, it's weird. This whole thing is weird. And I think Hunter S. Thompson plays a much bigger role in Johnny Depp's life, in how these relationships are formed. Come on up. Come on. Come up here. Yeah. All right, let's bring Elon Musk into the mix. It's getting kind of late, but I'm gonna pull a David Palmer tonight and go for 4 hours. By the way, shout out to the Leo King. Okay. All right, we just did that one. Let's look at now. I don't think Johnny Depp likes Elon Musk. Have you kind of figured that out? He doesn't like him. And the weird thing about Elon Musk is that both he and Amber Heard have had kids in vitro. I think, did Elon Musk have 2 sets of triplets? He had 6 kids, all in vitro. He's got he's got triplets and twins, and he lost one, which is weird, right? And Amber Heard has a kid in vitro that she was married to some woman. They were together, and what did they have, threesomes? Her and Johnny, whatever. That's not what. Hey, if that's what you do, that's what you do, right? It's your thing. Do what you got to do now. I can't tell you who to sock it to. All right. They do not get along. No, they don't. They don't. Do you get along? You get along. There's his Mars. That's Elon Musk's Mars in Aquarius, right? Yeah, it's conjunct Johnny Depp Saturn. That's friction, boys and girls. He doesn't like him. Does not like him. Oh, look. There's Elon Musk Venus conjuncting Johnny Depp's sun. Isn't it weird, right? You've got these chirons. We've got the South Node. All these players, whether it's Musk or whether it's Hunter S. Thompson or Amber Heard, they're all kind of clustered around Johnny Depp's fucking Gemini sun. So these two got a connection. It's not, they don't like each other. I can tell you that right now. Even though there's a trine here, there might be some level of mutual respect. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe, but I don't think they like each other. there's Elon Musk's Saturn on top of his Mercury. So if we were to look at like Amber Heard's Venus, it'd be right there. So she'd have a wide Venus Saturn conjunction. Elon Musk has Saturn in Gemini, right? So the appearance of Elon Musk gets in and it alters their relationship. And in some ways, he's probably more powerful than Johnny Depp. Maybe he's got more money than Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp spent a shitload of money. But we also see here Saturn square, Saturn Mars square, Mars square Venus, Mars. They don't get along. There's friction. There's tension here. Like, and I think Johnny Depp tried to subpoena Elon Musk, and he wouldn't be a part of the trial because he's too busy buying Twitter, which is happening at the same time of the trial, which is weird, right? This is a very complex chart. And again, more fourth house material, just like we saw with Mars here with Hunter S. Thompson, Pluto with Amber Heard. Now we see Jupiter, Neptune in Johnny Depp's fourth house. They're not going to marry each other. They're not going to live together, but these are all opposing his Venus, Mercury. So he's not going to trust this guy, right? He's like, you know, she's having an affair with him. He's coming in. He's bringing the cold water onto their relationship. This thing is just bizarre, totally bizarre. There's Chiron. Elon Musk has Chiron in Aries on his midheaven. So he's getting ready to go through his Chiron return. And what does he do? He's acting like a fucking alpha. You know, Elon Musk is acting like, oh, I'm going to buy Twitter. I'm going to buy Disney. Oh, yeah. You know, oh, AOC is harping on me. Oh, you're trying to hit on me. Please don't hit on me. I'm shy. You know, so he's playing the role of the alpha now. He's getting into his Chiron. Just wait till Mars gets up there. He might become a little insufferable. Anyway, his Chiron is conjuncting Johnny Depp's Jupiter. So could Elon Musk be feeling more like a man because, you know, he had a little thing going on with Amber Heard? Who knows what the fuck they did? Elon Musk is weird. Does he even have sex? I don't even know if he has sex. He didn't have sex to have his kids. Who knows? Who knows about the mathematical equations that he had with Grimes? That whole thing's fucking weird. And she goes off and, you know, starts to rush with Chelsea Manning. It's like this. If this was a soap opera, this could be a soap opera, and it's like a John Waters soap opera in the future on LSD. That's what it's like. That's what we're seeing right now. Elon Musk's South Node is again on Johnny Depp's first, right there on the ascendant. So he's got a very interesting, weird connection with Elon Musk. I tell you right now, they don't like each other. There may be some level of mutual respect, but they don't like each other. Johnny and Elon Musk's true node is right there on Johnny Depp's descendant. What did he do? He got into Johnny Depp's relationship. He moved in with his Mars. Johnny Depp says that he did it when they weren't together, that they cheated. She cheated on with Elon Musk. And she says, oh no, here, I saw a fucking timeline. I don't know why. We're not getting into a timeline with, you know, with the carjack and how the carjack happened and the player, but we have a definitive timeline with Amber Heard's relationship with Elon Musk to show the world that she wasn't cheating on Johnny Depp. So again, this is a very complex chart, right? More 12th house material. Elon Musk's Mercury in Johnny Depp's 12th house. And Moon Mars. Where else do we see Moon Mars? Well, we saw Mars Moon with Amber Heard. Like that's her Mars on Johnny Depp's moon. His moon, which is Elon Musk's moon in Virgo, is conjunct Johnny Depp's Mars. And again, this is not this, you know, these T-squares are not, he doesn't dig them. Mercury, Venus squared Elon Musk moon, right? Mars, Uranus, you know, probably at a certain point in time. I don't think Johnny Depp has ever, I don't know. Has Johnny Depp ever killed anybody? That's a good question. Well, there was the Viper Club thing with River Phoenix. I don't think he directly was involved in that murder, but he was part owner of the club and River Phoenix OD'd there, right? So would Johnny Depp actually kill somebody? Would he want to kill Elon Musk? I don't know. Maybe at a certain point in time he did. Maybe. Possible. With the moon there, all that big T square, right? He shouldn't though, because he's got this Jupiter Neptune conjunction squaring Johnny Depp's Mars. Like this, Elon Musk was bad juju for Johnny Depp. I can tell you that right now. Astrologically, I think Elon Musk has the upper hand in this relationship, in this entangled relationship. And it came right on the heels. It was almost like he was, okay, I'm gonna, maybe not consciously, I'm gonna snatch Johnny Depp's mojo here, because I'm gonna go right in and and Amber Heard is kind of, she's, I'll just use the word, she's a power whore. She's into power. But with Johnny Depp, I think there was something there. I think there was a there. She's got some strange connections with Elon Musk too, but not the same. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard are fatal attraction. And they're still together, even though they're divorced. In a weird way, they're still together. I'm just telling you that right now. Was she a crazy bitch? Yeah, probably. I don't think there's anything that we don't know that would tell us anything different at this point. So let's recap what's going on here. Deep entanglement, really deep entanglement. You can just see the cluster. They're all clustering around Johnny Depp, right? His Gemini sun. They're all clustering there. And Hunter S. Thompson has Venus in Gemini. Elon Musk has Venus in Gemini. Amber Heard is Chiron in Gemini. Black Moon Lilith, and they're all clustered around that sun, the Gemini sun. So where's this all going to go? It's a great distraction, but I do feel like there's some strange connection between Elon Musk, social media, Twitter, and how we're seeing the trial of two people play out based on all those things that I just talked about. And then the undercurrent is the Hunter S. Thompson relationship that Johnny Depp has, and ultimately a relationship with his soul, which is tortured. I can tell you that right now. And I do believe that Hunter S. Thompson and whatever thing that Hunter S. Thompson was in contact with, that drove him to the point where he had to blot out the pain of his soul, it's in Johnny Depp now. That's what he's dealing with. And he may not necessarily dislike it. He might like it. Sometimes when people have a sense of possession about them, they like it. They're kind of into it because they get something out of it. And as much as they get the pain out of it and the torture out of it, they probably get some power out of it too. Isn't that part of the deal? Isn't that part of the agreement? And you can tell, like, the longer this trial goes on, Johnny Depp gets stronger and stronger. You can just tell he's starting to feed off of things, or this thing that's inside of him is starting to feed off of things. He's found his footing in this trial. He can be polite. He can be a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-deprecating. He could be revealing, right? You have revelatory moments. He can be vulnerable. He can be slightly menacing at times, which I've seen him, right? So he's gaining power through this trial. And you can tell that whatever's going on with Amber Heard, she's losing power. She's losing power through this trial. This is exactly what Johnny Depp or whatever is in touch or in contact with him wants, because it's feeding off of it too. That's the other thing, right? Okay, let's get into Dugan. Do I want to do Dugan? No, I don't think so. I'll do Dugan. I'll do Dugan tomorrow, next week. But I do want to look at the eclipse because I keep putting it off. And by this time next week, we'll be a week away. I mean, we've been doing this now for a while, right? I started at 8. So we're 3 hours into this show tonight. Jasper's on insect patrol. He's on bug patrol. What do you see? What do you see? Oh, yeah. You see that bug, don't you? Where'd it go? Be careful. All right. Here, let's look at the eclipse. And don't knock that down. Life is weird. Okay. Thanks for being here, by the way. I think David had a Eclipse dance party on Friday. I haven't checked it out, but it's on my feed. David's a fucking good DJ. It's not DJ. He's a music. He makes music. He's not a DJ. He's actually like, you know, making the shit. Hold on. Where are we? Uh-oh. They're attacking. They're triangulating on the bug. All right. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go because I don't know what this bug is, but I don't want my pets to like eat like some poison or toxic bug. They're tracking it. Thank you for being here. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's presentation of Sunday Night AstroLive. We will get into the eclipse next week. We'll do the eclipse, we'll do Dugan, and we'll do Carla, Faye, Tucker. You have something to look forward to. Find me at robertphoenix.com if you're interested in an astrological reading. I do them there. Reach out to me. If you get a reading, I have a phone number at the top of the website, okay? That is a Skype number, and that will forward to me on my phone. Okay? It'll forward to me. You can call that number. If you get a reading, call that number. It'll forward to me. And that way I can set you up. That's the fastest way to do it. All right. They're playing patty cake with this bug now. I got to go. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. Thank you for being here. It's always a blessing. Take good care of yourself this week. Keep your feet on the ground and stay in the game. I'll be back tomorrow, 50 Minutes of Flame, right here at 9:11 a.m. Take care and bye for now.